Yeah, my anxiety can come in.
Oh, well, we're on. So there you go.
Yes, my anxiety is there.
On. Ready? There we go. We are live. We are live. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hold the applause. Thank you. All right. I love all my new buttons now. I'm trying to incorporate them more to bring some levity, to bring some fun, because we talk about such heavy duty stuff. And I don't know about you, but it takes a physical toll on me, like to kind of rip these Band-Aids up. But guys, in case you forgot who I'm here with, this is the one, the only, the beautiful Katherine Wain, who's here. And today we are going to dynamic duo it up here and talk about the differences. It's kind of like a threesome here. We're going to talk about the differences between Sea Org and staff, and then like real life, because there are, you know, like I've talked many times about there being sort of like a caste system inside Scientology, right? And there are completely different expectations, pressures, the same rules, but they're enforced in like different ways when you're in the Sea Org versus when you're on staff and you like go home to your own place at the end of the night and things like that. And then, of course, what we've experienced leaving all of this chaos and trying to, you know, live a real life in the real world with children and like school.
School has been, you know, especially since I was one of the kids that didn't get to go into a public school when I was younger. You know, I have a couple of friends who happen to have gone to public schools, but I didn't. And so I don't know how any of it works. And the school administration and the teachers will just act like I know what I'm doing. And I literally have to be like, so I was raised in a cult and I actually don't know what we're doing.
Like,
what am I supposed to do as the parent? I don't know any of these. You know, like when Rex got in 5th grade, they're like, oh yeah, he's going to CISPS. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, we do it every year. I go, what? Yeah. And then finally it's like, oh yeah, it's this program that they go and do camping for a week. And I go, oh, cool.
Yeah, we call that
acting like it's a normal thing. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like I'll never forget, like when my oldest was in kindergarten, an incident happened at school that I witnessed where one kid who was a known bully in the school, who was like 1 grade ahead of him, he was in 1st grade, walked up to him and grabbed the scarf on his neck and was like, I'm going to hang you, right? And just was like super violent. So my Scientology kicked in. So I wrote a report to everybody. Like I CC'd everybody from the teacher all the way up to the superintendent of schools. Like I was like, no, not today, Satan.
Right.
And I hand delivered these reports, right? Because it's rush. It's rush. You hand deliver it, rush.
Yeah.
And I got pulled into the principal's office. Like, okay, so Mrs. Crest, thank you so much for letting everyone know about this incident. However, you know, in the future, you could just, you know, like contact the teacher and then there's a procedure. And I was like, because I said in the thing, like, if this isn't handled, I'm going to like have to take legal repercussions, right? Because this is a serious matter. There was a death threat. And they were like, well, just so you know, the student has been handled and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what was the handling? Oh, well, we can't divulge that to you. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't understand how any of this worked. And so now from then on, like this kid was still at the school. He didn't get suspended. He didn't get expelled. And then every time he would see me, he would just literally turn and run, like just turn and run to the other end of the school. And I was like, okay, I guess that's a solution. And I went back to the principal and I was like, listen, I think you misunderstood. Like my intention is not to destroy this child. Like clearly this child needs help, like of whatever kind. But this is a distress signal. Like this kid's in 1st grade.
Indicative of something else going on at home.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, we're aware. The situation is out of our control. And I was like, and then I saw his dad one time and his dad was like terror, like just 6'7", huge man. And I thought, oh, this kid is just growing up in hell.
It's
you
just
know?
such a different thing. And it's something that we actually had to deal with ourselves a couple of times, is that we had to teach Rex and Boone that when they're encountering kids at school who are just vicious and mean, we go,
Right.
if they're behaving like that at school, what do you think their parents are doing to them at home?
Right.
And Rex and Boone were like, they probably are really, really mean to them. And that's what
Yeah.
they're learning. And I said, yeah. So while it's not okay and that's crossing a boundary, but we then also can remember and give empathy to keep the boundary, but then also not despise and hate. And yeah, the schools do not like things if written, especially if it goes all the way up.
Yeah.
Because then the school district comes into the school and is like,
Right.
what's going on? And the schools here, like the public schools, their hands are tied. Whereas in Scientology, if a kid had been doing that, that kid would probably end up at an org getting auditing.
Or declared. I've seen children get declared.
Yes.
For that kind of activity. And then the parents are like, well, you're a teen. You can go get a job. Bye.
Right.
Bye, Felicia. I mean, it's like, so I wasn't obviously wanting that for the kid. Right. He was 9, like, but I just wanted them to be aware, like, this is this child is this is a future school shooter. Like, like,
exactly.
Red alert, and they were just like, sure. Yeah. And I was like, wow, and it's just, like, I also have had to learn like patience in the real world, because in Scientology, whether you tell me on staff, like if somebody wrote something and was like, XYZ has to be done by 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Yes.
It would have been a generous target, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
You just got it done. There was no questioning. There was no like, well, I'm tired.
I've explained that specifically. And again, I think being at LA Org is a little different because we were considered part of the PAC base.
Right.
So if PAC base was in a state of emergency, which means all the stats are down.
Yeah.
And in that case, everyone's getting 15-minute lunches. So the Sea Org members get 15-minute lunches, and us as staff members got 15-minute lunches. Whereas I'm sure Portland Org does not go and say 15-minute lunches and you're back here and we're doing drills. And they're not doing that activity. But like I remember, and that's where one thing was when I talked to my therapists and stuff, they're like, can you just decide not to do this thing? And I was like, no, it's not. Right. I didn't have an option of saying no. I worked through lunches. I worked through dinners. I stayed till midnight. And that's while being on staff and living in the real world, where some weeks I got paid 47 cents. And I still had to, luckily I was one of the people who was younger and my parents paid for everything of me. But otherwise, there are people who will leave at 6 and go work till midnight at another job 7 days a week just to scrape by. And so it's very interesting. But going back to that point is that we didn't get an option of saying, no, this isn't a reasonable target. And we didn't get the option of leaving at 6. It was like you would have management at your office 5-10 minutes prior to make sure you weren't leaving. Yeah. And we would even have ethics officers at the back door and front door watching to make sure people wouldn't leave. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I want to say something. You reminded me of something on the 15-minute lunches and stuff, right? So when I first left, one of the first jobs that I got that was with my godfather's company. He was still like a Scientologist at the time. I think he was really in the process of leaving in 2004. He wasn't really doing Scientology. He was just like he was a SCIENTO. He was a Scientologist in name only. And so I'm working for his company, which was donating your car to charity, right? So you could get the tax write-off and that kind of thing. Okay. So I'm answering the phones and doing all this stuff. And after a month, my supervisor, who was like everybody who worked at the company, except for my godfather and the guy who was like second in charge, none of them were Scientologists. And so my supervisor, Diana, comes to me and she's like, we need to talk about your lunch. And I was like, oh, okay. What, am I taking too long? She goes, no, you're not taking enough time. And she goes, also, are you taking breaks? And I was like, oh no, I don't need those. I'm good. Like, I just want to be on the phone. And she was like, no, you have to take a break. And I was like, no, actually I don't. I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you're eating lunch at your desk and you're only like doing like 15 minutes. You have an hour. Like, I need you to take that. Oh, I don't need an hour. An hour. That's
what am I going to do? What am I going to do for an hour?
What? And she was like, no, you don't understand. This is the law. Like, if you're not clocked out for an hour, then they'll come and audit us and we can get in trouble legally. And I was like, no, that's not real. That's this is a test. This is a test. Like, that's crazy. And she's like, no, like, you have to take a break. You have to clock out for that break. I have to have evidence that you've clocked out. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like, and then the other part of my, ethics brain, like, I'm getting my senior in trouble with now this is out ethics.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I'm like, I'm having this panic, but I still didn't believe her. So then I had to go talk to my godfather and I was like, John, is this true? Like, is this how jobs work? Like, what? Yeah. And he's like, yes, please. Oh my God, you're not taking, he's like, oh my God. Like, yeah, you're not in the Sea Org. You can't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, I won't. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize that I could really screw the whole company by doing that, because this is why so many ex-Sea Org members end up at Scientology-owned companies, because they will fudge the books all day. Like, oh yeah, you took an hour lunch. Yeah, you took all your breaks, because they know that Sea Org members are just like, oh, I have a whole 20 minutes to eat. Wow. Oh, you're going to pay me $5 an hour. What?
Exactly.
I'm a millionaire.
I remember, do you know John-O the Blue? John-O?
Yes.
His brother?
Yeah. Okay.
So when he left the Sea Org, he ended up coming up to Oregon and he worked for Silken Management, which is a Scientology-owned company that does like managing of chiropractors, dentists, type thing. And John-O would come to work and stay past 6, and I'd be like, John-O, did you eat lunch? He's like, oh, I'm going to get to it. I just want to finish this. I'm like, John-O, you don't have to. I literally was like, you don't have to stay here. Your time ends at 5. He's like, I just feel so bad. I'm like, but you shouldn't, because you're not in the Sea Org anymore. You actually are supposed to go home. Like, you shouldn't be here. And he's like, oh, just, he's always walking around and like getting things done. Really,
you're still doing the Sea Org walk. You're still practically running everywhere, and people look at you like, is there a fire? Are we in danger? Are you
on speed? Are you literally on speed or coke? Are you
I don't know how many times people have been like, Nora, we need you. Maybe can we do a drug test? I'm like, sure. Drugs. Are you crazy? What? Yeah. Okay.
This is natural.
I am always hype. Yeah, no, it's great. Like, it's like when you join, like, okay, for us joining the Sea Org. Okay. So the EPF, guys, stands for Estates Project Force. And this is basically Sea Org boot camp. Okay. You're put into a dorm with the other people who have just joined up, and you're donning this little powder blue button down shirt that's got like snaps, and you get like pants or shorts depending on the weather. And you are this tiny little, like, it's Celebrity Center. We ended up doing a lot of housekeeping. And stuff. So we were cleaning the hotel rooms, but you're also just like scrubbing a lot of stuff. And this is supposed to bring your confront of mess, matter, energy, space, and time, all these things, the physical universe, up. And basically all it is hardcore, all day indoctrination into, you are a servant of mankind. You are no longer an individual. You are now part of the Borg. Like, you're just inserting yourself into the Borg. There's courses that you do. Welcome to the Sea Org.
Yes. How to clean.
And you do the etiquette course. I messed that up one time. I said FO38 was manners. It's not manners, it's etiquette.
Yeah, it's the etiquette course, the cleaning course.
Yeah, cleaning course.
So that's 1 or 0, 1, and 2.
And there's guys, on the cleaning course, there's L. Ron wrote things for everything. So if you want to clean glass, as an example, you want to go clean a window, you got to go get yourself some newspaper. Get the newspaper, y'all, and you dip. It cannot be the colored section. It cannot be the comic section. It has to just be black and white. And make 2 balls. So wax on, wax off situation. And so you dip one ball in just water, schmuzzle that all over the window, and then you take the dry ball and like, you know, get that. And actually, surprisingly, it gets it clean. It
really does. But that's like, that was something that was done so many years ago. And what's so annoying is that because he wrote it down and people who happen to not know it go, he's a genius. He knows so much. But housewives were doing it in 1950s. It's not like it was something abnormal or
from his mom. From his nana or something. Like I did that. I worked at New Seasons and our deli case just would not get clean with the microfiber and the cleaning solution. So I was like, I'm going to try it, see if it works. And they came out so nice. And I was like, what did you use? And I was like, newspaper. And they watched me do it. They thought I was an insane person. And then they're like, oh my God, that is the cleanest I've ever seen that. And I was like, yeah, I know. But then they were like, well, we're not going to do that. It's a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, it's a lot of work.
A lot of work. It takes a lot of elbow grease. You know, it's like you're buffing and buffing and buffing. And I mean, I'm sure people have seen the videos of Pack Base and the big blue buildings and how many windows there are. So Friday night was White Glove for LA Day. We'd have a muster and then we'd go clean, and then we'd have pack-based security and our own ethics officers coming around doing a check with a white glove on and a checklist and going, okay, did you dust the surfaces? And then checking. And they love to check behind a picture frame. So behind a picture frame on the bottom, the ledge there, they'll pick that up and go on the back and be like, you missed this. Do it all over again.
Oh, I would do white glove inspections at the Wilcox where we lived after CSP, after Clean Ship Program. And the thing I would flunk almost every guy's dorm on, and it was like a secret pleasure of mine, was to like go behind their toilet. And I would just take a paper towel and just go behind the toilet. It's just pubes and pee. And I'd be like, you guys are this is pigs birthing.
Yeah, exactly. What's funny is I lived in the Wilcox originally when my parents, when in the 80s when my parents.
Were you born there like a lot of people or no?
No, my parents were joined when I was about 2.5. So along with all my other 4 siblings.
Do you remember what room you lived in?
I don't.
You know, it's a hotel now, right?
I heard that it finally got like sold off.
Yes. The bottom floor is like they made it like a posh lobby, reception. They still have the same jankety ass elevators that have been there forever. And then everything else is a hotel. And now they have a rooftop like bar that you can go to there. And if you go, like literally, if you go and you'd be like, hey, I used to be in Scientology and I lived here. Can I see my old room? They'll totally let you in if it's not occupied by somebody who's, you know, rented it for the night, because they know, because so many of us have shown up and just been like, I was born in room 402. Do you mind if could I just see it? And they're like, okay.
Yeah. I only remember that we were pretty far up the building and that we were at the end of a hall, and then my sisters were in another room just a few doors down the opposite way. But it was me, my brother, and my mom and dad in the one room, and then my 3 other older sisters in the other room. And so it was pretty, I mean, I just think it's amazing that so many of us have been in the Wilcox. And I always wonder how many of us are going to get lung cancer or something from the Wilcox.
Thank you.
Mold, cockroaches, it had asbestos. It was like, my mom hated it. She complained so much.
Your mom was like, no, thank you. This place is disgust.
Yeah, she was like, this is disgusting and not standard. And finally, eventually, they got us an apartment on Edgemont. So the Sea Org paid for an apartment for me, my brother, and my mom and dad to live in. And we called that the Green Rug apartment. It's like 2 down from the 1, 2, 3, 4 Edgemont.
Okay. Yeah.
So 2 down.
That's
where we lived. Yeah. And then I had tons of friends in the 1, 2, 3, 4.
There you go. I got in trouble because my mom came to visit me shortly after I joined the Sea Org, and I took her into the Wilcox to see my birthing when I was still living in the EPF dorm. Yeah. And she walks in, and guys, you have to realize that when we lived there, it was not the hotel that you can walk into now. which I think is called like Mama Somethings. I'll find it. I'll pull it up. But hi.
It's my dad. He's telling me he's going to go for a walk.
Oh, okay. Hi, Dad.
You want to come say hi to Nora?
Is he coming?
Yeah, he's coming.
Oh, okay.
You say hi.
Hi.
Closer.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, he can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
He's going to go for his daily walk. Okay, I'll see you
So
soon.
sweet.
Yeah, it's Nora.
Yeah.
He's a sweetheart.
He is. He's living his best life now.
Yeah.
Retired here with us.
There you go. See, and this is what I try to tell people when we're out protesting. Like, we see people that are the same age as our parents in their 70s. And it's like, it's time to be retired. It's time to not be scrubbing chalk off the sidewalk, doing manual labor.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you know,
again, it goes back to that like idea or concept that this lifetime right now doesn't matter.
right.
All that matters is getting up through the grade charts so that the next lifetimes you're not stuck in this trap and this
Right.
instead of being like, life is pretty darn amazing and it's beautiful outside, and just to go for a walk and be a human and enjoy that aspect.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't see a lot of them. I can't conceive that a lot of them would end up being like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to address something that's coming up in the chat. Apparently, a lot of people didn't get notifications. So Aaron was talking about this like a year ago, that sometimes people get like, I don't know what the deal is with YouTube, but sometimes it will like change your notification level. So if you're not getting the notification or you didn't, go to, like out of the chat for a second and look at your subscription to my channel and click on it to see like if you're getting all notifications or just like a custom one. Because sometimes YouTube just does stuff. And
I almost wonder if it's an algorithm that it picks up like, if you say notify me, but then you don't go and watch that video right away,
Right.
going, oh, well, okay, we'll only notify you 1 out of 5 times. Or something.
YouTube is banky.
Yeah.
Thank you. YouTube is banky. I love that. That's hilarious. But yeah, so and also when you're watching content, whatever content, not just mine, but whenever you're watching content, like it, and what you're doing right now, place a comment, because that tells the algorithm I want more.
It means I am enjoying this and I want to engage in it. And so it goes, oh, okay. Like, especially if you share a video, if you share one like YouTube short, then you start getting all that channel's shorts.
As an example, yesterday I did that live with Serge where we talked about Elena and Grant Cardone. And so I had to search for all of their videos. And so now, thanks YouTube, I'm getting all of the Cardone crapola in my feed, which is like, no me gusta.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I don't want like, I'm still recovering from that, guys. It's still like, literally my whole body was in a knot just thinking about those children and like thinking about my own childhood, like, ugh. But we'll get back to other trauma. Let's just go into adult
I
trauma.
watched it though. It was a good video. I'm glad you guys went over it. And I even commented tons. It's intense and it's not abnormal in Scientology for that kind of attitude and behavior. I mean, let's get straight. I was working at 13. I would leave school at 12 and then I would go and I'd babysit from 1 o'clock to 6, Monday through Friday. And it was a job, like a job. And I got paid. And
nobody thought that was weird.
No, everyone thought I was so upset. I'm very mature for my age. And that's one thing that's important is children should not be mature for their age. If you're finding a child who's mature for their age, most likely they have experienced enough trauma that this is how they are now. And it's almost like a disassociative pattern where it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm this thing. And that's like, it's the only way their brain learned to survive. But we can go on and on about that.
No, I know. That's like I said yesterday, Serge, we could talk about this literally all day because it's like, thinking back, what I try to explain to people is some people have gotten critical of me like, oh, well, you didn't really grow up in this. Like we are all snowflakes, guys. Like Catherine's experience isn't exactly like mine. My experience is not exactly like Jenna's or Aaron's or, Serge's or things like that, because all of our parents were involved in different areas, different degrees, different levels of belief, different case states in Scientology. And all of that then it demonstrates itself in different ways. Like if we were talking about Christianity right now, right? And I had grown up in an Episcopalian home and you grew up in a Baptist home and Aaron grew up in a Lutheran home and Serge grew up in a Catholic home, we would all have different experiences, but we would have, Jesus in common. Right? Yeah. Right. So we could all.
You all had priests. You all had Sunday service or Saturday service, depending on, there's all these overlaps. And so that's why I always say is like, are all our individual stories, maybe they'll be similar, but it's not always the same. It's just overlaps. I was born into Scientology to parents who were OT7, class 5, very dedicated.
Right.
Joined the SEERG when I was 2.5, left when I was about 6, but also applied Scientology to me at a young age. Their belief was apply the conditions, apply the, all those things. And so it's all different. You get some kids who are like, oh yeah, I joined staff at 16. Like we had a couple people who joined staff at a young age. And because they would do the workaround of, they're studying full time. That's how they would get them legally on staff, was because you had to be at school. Well, we called Scientology training school.
So is that how you guys would get around it on class 5 org staff? Like if you had a minor who was on staff,
you added them to the TTC, the Technical Training Corps,
which is full-time training, guys. You're not doing any other work. You're just studying. Like that's what I did when I went to Flag in Florida for a few months. Deborah, I know snowflake has been weaponized now. You cannot say snowflake without people thinking that you're.
Oh, she means, Nora means literally like a snowflake. Like every snowflake is different.
Every snowflake is different.
Not that we're snowflakes, like the derogatory term that some
I know, but it's
use.
like now become a dirty word, which is stupid.
Well, it's because it became a derogatory term, and it's so sad because snowflakes are beautiful and different, and that's the whole point. Is that they're individual and they're all snowflakes, but they're all going to have their own pattern and difference. And that's where I sent that thing to you this morning. It was from, I think, like literally the.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah, I think it was literally like actual. I don't even know what this website is. Oh, the National Library of Medicine.
Right. Let me pull that up here.
Yeah, that one was a great one because it goes over. So it says, but many more individuals will exhibit resilient responses or brief subclinical symptoms or consequences that fall outside of diagnostic criteria. So I think that that's also, again, important to realize. But to go back on staff, so one thing is we'd also sign up people and then we wouldn't have them officially start their contract. Because, your contract doesn't start until you're done with your training if you're on the TTC, right?
Right.
So we would sign people up. They would sign the contract and then we'd go, okay, you're going to go do all this training now. And you're not officially on staff, but you're coming to the staff meetings. You're doing everything like you're on staff. When I went to Flag for training, we had one of our staff members come who were under 18. And so I became their legal guardian while we were on staff. Yeah,
that happens. That happened a lot, guys, where the parents would sign you over to an adult who could literally just be someone who was 18. And they would sign over their parental responsibilities, in essence, to the church at that point, literally foregoing any legal rights they had to that child any longer. In the Sea Org, that would happen also, but for the most part, minors were encouraged to get married because then upon marriage, especially in California, you become an emancipated minor, you become a legal adult legally in the United States of America if you're married under the age of 18. And so this is how a lot of young women ended up being married to very older men
And having sexual.
and having, yeah.
First,
James Richardson, who I've identified in Mark Bunker's movies from the 90s.
Richardson?
James Richardson, the security chief, CC.
Oh, yeah.
Mark didn't know who he was for years. Nobody told him. He just referred to him as Buddy. He thought he was an OSA agent. And I'm like, no, that's James Richardson, the security chief, Celebrity Center. And I said, notice he has a wedding ring on. That wedding ring at that time, when you filmed him in 1997, 98, he was married he was 27. So by that time, I guess he was like 29. But when he got married at 27, his wife was 14. And he spent weeks hammering this girl's mom to get the permission. And finally, it came to like a hammer of Thor moment where he was like, I can ruin your entire Scientological life if you don't do this. Like she was threatened basically with like expulsion from Scientology if she didn't sign the paperwork for him to go to Vegas with her daughter to get married. Now the reason why I've never said her name is just last I heard, she was out of the Sea Org. She was remarried. She has kids and she's never spoken out. So I'm just going to be like, we're just going to leave her over there.
I agree.
And she was a minor and that's statutory, graping. And, it's just, it's awful. Yeah. It's awful what happened to her, what she went through. And if she is a lurker, somehow I would love to talk to her. And help her out any way that I can, because it's just, that wasn't uncommon though. That was highly normalized for us in the Sea Org.
It's just an age. It's just an age.
Who cares?
You're not anything significant other than just, you've been here for 1 billion years. You're going to be here another 1 billion years.
Sure.
What does it matter? But yeah, I've spoken to friends who, were in the Sea Org and they're like, yeah, I got married. And then like, he forced me to have sex with him the first night. And it's like, you don't have a choice. You can't report it. You can't do anything.
There's nobody to report it to.
No. And so that, again, is another aspect of, again, we could do a whole few hours on that alone.
Yeah.
But
back to the training.
Yeah. Listen, I will go on tangents and talk about all sorts of things. But
did you do the TTC at any time?
I did. I was on the PTSSP evolution. So I went to Flag and I became a fully trained PTSSP specialist.
Wow.
As a staff section officer.
Which is the SSO. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like a mini organization inside the organization for staff. And so that's why I think also I have a nice perspective, because I coordinated closely with ethics on staff members.
Yeah.
And I was the one to review all the PC folders. I was the one who had to read all their OW write-ups.
Yeah.
Make sure they were right, do their meter checks, all these things. And so I got to experience and watch, and it was all normalized. I was like, yeah, this is totally great. So glad they got all these things off. And like looking back, I'm like, how weird is it that someone writes all these secrets that are very personal, and then you just have someone come along and read them? Yeah. And, you're supposed to act like, oh, it has no significance on me anymore. It's just a thing.
It's gone now. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's like as if you're a Catholic and you go to the confessional booth and you say, forgive me, Father, I've sinned. And you tell him what you did that week. And then he's like, okay, go do 20 Hail Marys and, call it a day. And you're just supposed to like, let it go. But the problem is, as Catherine was explaining, you're writing this down. Guys, you're not saying it out loud to a guy in the booth next to you who
doesn't know who you are.
Doesn't know who you are. It's anonymous, and like he's literally there, just be like, "I forgive you, child," and you're a better person for having said these things out loud, right? In Scientology, you write it all down. Then, as Catherine just attested to, that is used later.
Yes,
against you. Any things that you have confessed, that is going to be brought up over and over and over and over ad infinitum to tell you what a fucking criminal you are. And this, Oh, your stats are down this week? Well, we know that you like to think about petting dogs rather than being here and saving all mankind, because you wrote that down, that you wish you were in a park where you could just pet dogs.
Are you going to the parks? Are you doing something? And that is like the criminalization of being a human in Scientology is just astounding.
Yeah. Everything can be made into a crime, guys. Literally, just the desire and the one. You miss your dog who passed, and you miss the fluffiness, and you wish you could just go to a park and be cuddled by dogs. Criminal.
Right. And that's what's so dangerous too, is because you write things down you feel are bad and naughty and what's wrong. So there's people who, for the self pleasures, some were like, I don't consider that anything. And so they wouldn't write any of it down because they just go, I don't care. That's nothing. That's normal. Yeah. Whereas you could have someone sitting right next to them being like, I did it this day. I'm so horrible. Right. I'm introverting myself. I'm making it. And then they start going like, oh, I'm not doing well. I'm introverted because I'm doing this. And it's like, no, it's, but, anyway, back to the staff and the Sea Org thing. So yes. So when you first start, you do the EPF on staff in the Sea Org. It's similar, but not where you're getting special outfits and everything, but you basically join staff. You get your staff status 0, which is literally walking around the whole organization, basically finding where everything is and looking at things and opening all the doors to HCO to know where everything is, and then you do studying for 5 hours a day to get through your staff status 1 and 2. And then once you're done with that, then you get to go on post, which is same for the Sea Org members. As soon as you're done with your staff status 2, you're on post. So that's why they loved plucking people from our org. Right. Because everyone's already done through staff status 2. They're getting through the EPF in a day because all it takes is them having to do their qualifications to see where they, qualify to work for somewhere on the PAC base. And so, but
don't forget the 2 greatest things about starting staff. Okay. Number 1, while you're studying and doing these things, guys, you are what's called an expediter. And an expediter means that you can get thrown into any area of the organization, things you don't even know about, things that you've never heard of, but you are expected to walk into that scenario, walk into that job and just do it.
Yeah.
Because now you're OT because you're on staff or you're in the Sea Org, and there's no complaining. There's no fucking it up. There's just like, you're doing it. So you walk into that like, okay, I got this. Like I'm doing the mail room now. Oh, tomorrow I'm going to be running a course room. Okay. And then the day after that, I'm doing treasury. And then now I'm going to go and do some, planting of plants. Like, you're like, I never fucking raised a plant in my life.
The bitch jobs of going to shredding. So I know I've seen a video. I forget who.
Have you seen all this trash that the protesters are finding?
I saw that. I was like, how are they finding?
They forgot
this big no. I mean,
policy.
The shredder. So for PAC base, I've seen a video. I forget who posted it, but they basically showed on the backside, like by the horseshoe.
Yeah.
There's where the buses get all worked on and all that. And then there's a room that has no windows.
Nope.
No air conditioning, no airflow, nothing. And a giant, bigger than a car shredding machine.
It's like the size of a semi truck, guys, almost. It's enormous.
If you're lucky, they'll have a mask for you.
Respirator.
Yeah. Sometimes they had it, sometimes they didn't. And you would sit there and you had to wear headphones or something to protect your ear because it was so loud, like deafening loud. Right. And the shredding would pile up like bags and bags and bags of the black shredder. I mean, one time when I was working at HCO, I ended up being like, I volunteer, I'll just go do all the shredding. I'll come in earlier.
Right.
I was like, just someone else has to bring all the bags to the room for me. And I was in there for like 3 hours shredding everything. And I was like dripping sweat. And like, I was like, afterwards, I was like, I have to go home and take a shower now because I'm disgusting and I can't be here.
Yeah, because they would never trust, like there's companies all over the country that just do confidential shredding for, government offices, for all these things. And it's very like secure. Like I worked at a food distribution company, and they had a company that would come in and get the little, locked, barrels, take them out and then put them into the truck and then, go away. And those people, I looked into that job once of like driving the truck for the company that picks up the shredding for all these, confidential places. You have to be seriously vetted to get that job. Like it is like you're getting into the CIA to drive this truck to pick up people shredding, right? But Scientology doesn't trust that, doesn't trust outsiders. So they have these enormous industrial shredders, at least in the pack base. CC had its own shredder, and it was like samesies. We had ours in the loading dock area, and it was enormous. And then we double shredded. We would shred ours, and then we would send it to an outside company that would like incinerate it, right?
Oh,
so it was like shred, incinerate, just and still one of my favorite things, and you'll remember this probably from the telex days, is that like all my friends, like it became like the slang. If you were like pissed or you're being sassy with somebody, just be like, ack and shred. But they would do or if they couldn't say that out loud, because ack is short for acknowledgement. Like if you're just if somebody sends you a communication, which in today's world would be like a text, okay?
Or an email.
Or an email. So you would just go, thank you, we got it. And then you would hit another button on your little terminal that would shred the original message. It would delete it. Basically, it was delete from the system. But to do that, you'd go click, click, click. So it was ack and shred. And you could it was like an automatic ack, like, got it, just bop, bop, bop. And so if people couldn't say ack and shred, like to someone's face because they were senior or something, we would just do that behind the person, like, just let it go.
I love that. I love that.
Because it was like, it was like the only sass that we had was to invent like little teeny slang like that. But reason why I bring this up is like the protesters in Chicago specifically have found the entire floor plans, guys. I cannot tell you the level of security alert that's happening because of that. Like
I saw that and I was like, wild. And like I'm seeing like personal written hand notes to people.
Executive directives in San Francisco they found in the trash. I'm not in charge. Like
I'm wondering if it's someone who, these people who are in there who are like, I want out so badly. So this is how they're gonna do it. Is they're slowly kind of getting
like putting it in the trash bags. Thank you for that. Whoever is slipping this stuff into the trash, good job. We will help you. Please contact the SPTV Foundation because you endanger girl.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you guys have to understand, and everything gets shredded. It's not just like old reports. This is like in the training that we're talking about, a lot of that consists of nonsense. Okay. A lot of it consists of lists of nonsense, lists of dogs, lists of, countries, lists of fruit, vegetables, right? Because your favorite color, because when you're learning to use the e-meter, you're supposed to use these lists that aren't like charged. They're not charged subjects, right? So you learn to assess in the auditor style, these lists. So you ask like, what's your favorite color? And then you go down the list and you're looking at the meter. Okay, Heather, go do your do. I love you. Thank you. You're like, what's your favorite color? Green, red, blue, yellow.
Chartreuse. Oh my God. I spent hours clearing so many words from that.
Oh my God. These stupid
the colors,
dogs and the fucking countries. And then there would be all these debates on how you pronounce certain countries. Mm-hmm. Is it Uruguay, or like, like we're all pronouncing these things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, nobody ever pronounced Qatar correctly. We all were like Qatar, like,
yes,
but apparently it's Qatar. So, this is something I learned.
I just learned that today.
Right? Yeah, it's Qatar. That's the correct pronunciation of Qatar, guys. It is not Qatar. It is Qatar. Mind blown. We all had an MU on that. But they would shred those lists because you're marking it with either, nothing, or you're putting like F, SF, LF, or LFBD, which is fall, small fall, long fall, blowdown. This is the different indications that can happen on the e-meter. And so they were like, if people see this, it's gonna freak people out. No one would even know what that meant. And it's literally lists of trees, and like things like that. Like, who cares? But oh no, you gotta shred it. It's confidential.
Yeah.
Confidential.
Basically the rule was, if it's paper, shred it.
Just
shred it. It doesn't even matter if it's a doodle from course, a list of words you cleared. Just shred it. If it's paper, you shred it. And that's the rule. And that's what is always so hammered on to the staff members and the Sea Org members. And that's where I kind of get interested in, like, the idea of staff in other states. They're just not the same. Like, they're not having security guards come and check everything.
Right.
And I think that's one aspect that's different for the Sea Org members and the LA org, is that it just was even more of a high control.
Oh yeah.
Isolating. I mean, like, when you're being a staff member, it's all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like this idea, like, if you had friends who said the slightest thing about staff, cut them off. I slowly cut friends off and off and off until all I had were staff member friends.
Right.
And I remember one time one of my family members left staff, and they were struggling with, all of a sudden, these people who they thought were their friends are like not talking to them, not texting, not including them in life. And I was like, yeah, of course, that's how it works. I'm like, for me, it was something that I already knew would exist because I already had gone through it.
Right.
Like, I had already gone and been like, oh, these people are only my friend because I was a staff member. And that's where, I was watching a video the other day, I think it might have been Aaron's, and it was about being married in the Sea Org. And, again, it goes back to, oh, you're a staff member? I'm a staff member. Great, we're friends. You could have nothing else in common at all.
Right? You're just
Nothing.
like, oh, you are also Scientology. I like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're single? Fantastic.
Yes. And that's also part of that thing where it's like, you're trying to find a partner in the Sea Org. You're going based off of looks. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest.
You're not seeing each other for dates. You're often not even going to eat dinner at the same time or same place.
No.
You're not having breaks together. Maybe you'll have some cleaning time on Sunday morning together. Maybe
laundry at the laundromat. Ooh,
exactly.
Romantic.
I'll clean this window, you clean the other.
Hot date.
Yeah, exactly. Sweating with your room that probably doesn't have air conditioning because you didn't get the window air conditioner because that only went for the higher uppers. But yeah, so I think that was one thing that I found interesting. It was like, again, it's like, oh, you're a Scientologist, you're in the Sea Org. I think you're hot. Let's get married.
Yeah, and with this romance, guys, if we want to call it that, would often last as little as 2 weeks before people got married, because you have to understand the rules in the Sea Org, and it did carry over partially to staff. It was less harsh, but in the Sea Org, you could not do anything physically other than hold hands, hug, and kiss. Now, tongue kissing was risky because it could lead to wandering hands. You cannot feel any boobies or no touching over clothes, even, guys.
It's almost like a Victorian type.
Oh my God!
Type thing where it's like, may I hold your hand? Oh, if I'm seen holding your hand, it's like that type of thing, and it's like, oh, I just wanted to have sex with that person so bad.
You're just like, I am hot and bothered. I need to get these clothes off. And so people would get married, and like I think I've told the story of my first marriage, but like we did not consummate the marriage. I was not at that point. I was not attracted to him. He was saying all the wrong things. Yeah, it was kind of like, I mean, it became a legendary story inside the Sea Org because the way he told it was like, I I refused him, and then when I came back from flag, I made him sleep on the top bunk of this bunk bed. It's not exactly what happened, but I did end up leaving him, and I got an annulment, and I had to go to court to get an annulment, guys, because I didn't want to do a divorce because we hadn't consummated it. And I was 19. I was terrified. I was a virgin. I didn't, and this guy was, raring to go. There was no, and so when I went to get the annulment, I showed up. This is when CC had gotten their new uniforms with the pearls. We had pearls, guys, and this like little. We were so fancy. I look like a fancy hotel concierge.
I was just gonna say, you look like a fancy hotel person.
Right, I did. I looked like a fancy hotel. It was like pinstripe suit. So I show up and I was looking good, guys. I was thin. I was young. I was it. So I show up in the courtroom with my lawyer. I had to hire a lawyer. He was one of my students, and he gave me a discount, guys, because normally going to court and all this stuff would have cost like $7,000. So he did it for $2,500. He cut me a deal because I was a Sea Org member. So I had to come up with $2,500 to pay this man so I could get Ron Flate. Ron Flate was my lawyer. And if you know the Flate family, they're another big like Scientology family. So we walk into the courtroom and I explained to the judge, like, my ex, my first husband, he had worked at the HGB and I was at Celebrity Center. And this was true. During our ride from LA to Vegas to go get married, he spent the entire time talking to me and my mom about how celebrities were evil and everything that celebrities were doing was off purpose. And that's not the way we're going to clear the planet. And was just like dogging. And then like my mom is like a huge movie buff. She was not in the Sea Org or anything at the time. And by the time we got back to LA, my mom was bawling, like hysterically bawling, pulls up in the Celebrity Center horseshoe where we're going to spend the night in the honeymoon suite. And she's like, I hope you're happy with your life choices. And just like drives off. Like she was so like hysterical. So I'm explaining this to the judge and he's like, oh, okay, so you work for Scientology. And I was like, oh shit. Like he already dropped the Scientology bomb because I was just saying, not that. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh, okay. So you have long hours. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, was your husband aware of that when you guys got married? And I was like, yeah. And so we went through like all these questions. And then the judge was like, well, I feel for you. I feel like you've gone through like a really bad thing, but I cannot, rule in favor of you getting an annulment. And like my whole body started sinking. And I was thinking, what the fuck does this mean? And then Ron leans into the microphone and just gets really close and is like, Your Honor, there was no coitus to, commensurate marriage, blah, blah, blah. He like says it in super fancy lawyer stuff. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. Like the stenographer stopped. There's two stenographers. They just look at each other like, what? And then the bailiff is like, and he's like looking at me like, I would fuck her. Like, what is and so the judge like stopped. He's like, I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you saying you never had sex with your husband this whole time? Because we had legally been married for 2.5 years, but we had been like not together. And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, well, I can clearly see the mental anguish that you've been through. And this is horrific. I don't normally do this. Bring the paperwork up right now. I'm going to sign it right now so that you can be annulled. Right. Here we go. We're going to hand this to, oh my goodness. I am so sorry. Like he's apologizing to me. And then I'm leaving. And the bailiff is like, I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And then my mom took me to get like a milkshake. We went to In-N-Out and I got a milkshake as a celebratory thing. And then I called the HGB because I hadn't actually talked to him. He didn't know I was going to court. So I just called him and he wouldn't pick up. They're like, can we have a message for him? And I was like, sure, just tell him it's Nora. And Nora says, you're free. And so then I get this frantic call back. What does that mean? I'm like, oh, I didn't tell you. I went to court today. We're officially not married anymore. He's like, how did you do that? What did you say? And I'm like, and then he's like, OSA interrogating me. Well, this could be a flap. Why would you go to a courtroom? Because guys, if you end your marriage in Scientology, it is supposed to be amicable. You just go to you go downtown, you get your liberty. You go downtown, you each fill out the paperwork for free. To say, I'm divorcing so-and-so, and then you wait your 3 months and you're divorced. Done. handled, right? And you end up paying like $100 or whatever, and you're just divorced. So the fact that I went to a courtroom to like testify about our marriage, about the sham that it was, and like this is out PR. This was bad.
Right. That was a flap.
It was a total flap. It was a total flap that I had hired one of my students to be a lawyer, which means now he knew Sea Org nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. Which I didn't care. I just didn't want to have like that marriage on my record. I just wanted to be like, I was never married.
Right. And that was like a normal consideration feeling. Right. And what you went through was like anyone else in the world would be like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, and it's so funny, it goes back to like, this could create bad PR for Scientology.
Right.
Like, you're not important. You are a staff member, a Sea Org member, and all you're supposed to be doing is furthering Scientology tech and clearing the planet. And this is the opposite. I mean, I remember one time my mom had asked me, she's like, you make enough, a little enough amount of money. Maybe you might want to apply for food stamps. It would help with, because I was on staff, but they were supporting me 100%. My father was making money, but
sure.
If they're supporting 2 children who are on staff,
that's a lot.
It's a lot. You're paying for 2 adults essentially. Not children like kids. I'm talking like now they're like in their 20s and you're still supporting them financially 100%. And so I was considering it, and my mom was like, yeah, there's a policy on it too. Cause I was like, I can't have it. And I forget the policy, but it was specifically like, don't touch. It's like red on white, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like, don't trust the government, and they're so horrible.
Yeah.
But if they're willing to give free handouts, take advantage.
Go get that cheddar.
Yeah. Right. And so I had mentioned something, and it was to the flag banking officer, and she came in and she was like shaking. She gets so anxious and so nervous, her hands would shake, and she'd be like, you can't apply for, you can't do this. And I was like, why? There's a policy that says I can. And she's like, it's out PR. It's not okay.
Right.
You should be being able to make enough money. I'm like, but I'm not. And she knew this. Like, on average, I made about $10,000 a year for my full 6 years of being on staff.
That's amazing. I never made more than $2,000 a year.
Yeah. And again, it's staff. We're supposed to be making more than Sea Org members because we're not being paid. We're supposed to pay for our own food, our own housing, everything. But still, again, it's like $10,000 a year in Los Angeles, even in the early 2000s, you could not live. And then when I was just going to go and get food stamps, not tell anyone, just go and apply quietly.
Sure.
Like, you can't do that. It's so bad PR. What if someone finds out? I'm like, who's going to find out? And then I couldn't do it because she was like, it's going to be bad PR. And that's again, where it's like, it's that group think where it's all about the cause and not about the individual. If your leg is broken and you're falling behind, well, you're going to be left behind.
Well, yeah, they tell you all this, yet when you're in the Sea Org, you're supposed to go to either all of you or USC Medical Center and purposely fill out the I'm poor, paperwork, and you disclose fully. You get told, like when I was on the RPF, you would bring your pay stubs with you because they wouldn't believe you. And so you bring in your pay stubs and you say, look, I'm making $12.50 a week.
Yeah.
Here's my pay for the last 2 months. And you just bring in these fucking pay stubs and they look at you like, this can't be real. This cannot be real. And it's like, yeah, this is my real life. This is my real life.
Let's talk about All of You Medical Center. It's a county hospital for people who don't know. It's a county hospital that when you're trying to get into the ER, you have to go through a metal detector.
Yep.
And have your bag searched because it's so dangerous and bad. And even if you're literally sitting in there dying, because my mother went and she was literally actively dying. She had pancreatitis.
Oh God.
She was literally like going unconscious, puking all over herself, like literally going unconscious. And we were there for hours. And my brother finally went to over 3. And finally my brother went to a nurse and firmly was like, she's dying. You need to get her administered now. And as soon as they did, they're like, oh my gosh, she has pancreatitis. And then she went into a coma for like a week or two. That was one of the times that we thought we were going to lose her. Like it kept happening repeatedly.
Yeah.
She'd been so sick. She'd go in the hospital. I mean, we were preparing. My eldest sister flew out.
Yeah.
She was in a full-blown coma for over a week. And it was like that hospital, once you get in and you see the staff, it's fine, right? Like,
yeah.
But it's getting in and just being there with hours of waiting. Even if it's like, you're like, oh, I have strep throat. Well, you're going to go wait for 12 hours until someone finally sees you and gives you antibiotics.
Yeah.
And it's just absurd that the amount of money, I mean, I even had, so for me, I had to take the Sea Org members that worked at us. So we had an executive director who was a Sea Org member. We had our flag banking officer who was a Sea Org member, and we had our FBO and our deputy FBO Sea Org members. And so I was the one who had to quietly and sneakily take them to the doctors. I had to go out the back entrance, go on to Catalina, and then I would come back through Catalina, and they wouldn't be seen by the staff. They wouldn't be anything. And yeah, it just drove me nuts that.
Because it's always a secret when somebody's really sick, because you cannot be sick because you're going to spread that PTSD everywhere. And when you are sick, it's the one time, like when you're really sick, it's the one time that you're ever told to like reveal your true feelings and tell people how much pain you're in, because otherwise you won't get the treatment that you need. So you have to hype each other up. Like when we were on the RPF and somebody would be really sick, we'd have to be like, guys, you have to dramatize right now, like full dramatization, let it out. And like one time, but this is how little care they have, guys. When I was on the RPF, I decided to, like, my periods had always been bad. They were just always like horrific. I would get migraines, and they were just really rough. Like I just needed to like lie down, even since I was a child, and since I hit puberty. And so they were like, well, you got to do something about this. Go over to Planned Parenthood and get some birth control, because that, usually handles it. So I went and got this birth control that was a progestin only thing. And because when I was 16, my doctor had put me on birth control because of my bad periods. And I went like kind of crazy. Like too much estrogen like threw me into a loop. Like I became hysterical. I took myself off of it. I was like, I can't do this. So I'm on this progestin only stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. Like my period came, I didn't have pain. I was like, what is this magic? So my second period starts happening and it doesn't stop. And now I'm like 3 weeks into
Nora, I had the same thing.
Okay. So
I had the same thing. Literally 20 days of period.
Oh, no.
And then another 20. It stopped for 5 days and then another like 30.
So I'm doing this and I'm literally to the point now on the fourth period in 2 months. And I'm going through, guys, and for the women out there, you'll understand this. I'm going through a box of super tampons and pads a day. Now, first of all, I'm on the RPF. You have to buy all this yourself on $12.50 a week. But I am literally so pale, so I cannot eat. I cannot function. And the RPF I see is like, he comes into the room where I'm literally bleeding out, guys. And he looks at me and he goes, look at all your fucking case on post. Just knock it off. And at that moment, I was like, I resigned myself to death. I resigned myself to being dead. Now, the only thing that saved me at that moment was my twin, Misha, who was like, fuck this. She's also on the RPF, guys. She just went into CLO to the medical liaison officer, Quinn Toffer, who I think I just put on a video, right? Everybody, how much money does Quinn Toffer owe you, Catherine? There's not a
he was older than
borrow
me.
Money from.
He was luckily Quinn was more friends with my brother, and
ask your brother how much money Quinn Toffer owes him.
Yeah.
There's nobody on Pack Base that Quinn Toffer didn't fucking borrow money from, including RPFers. Okay, moving on. That guy, talk about a con man. I think he's still in the Sea Org because I saw
he's a Babyan. Like he was part of the Cadet Org when it first started, when it got moved to the ranch, because the Cadet Org used to be on Pack Base.
What his middle name is? I know because he showed me his license once. It's Hammer.
That's cute.
His middle name is Hammer. Anyway, I saw him on a protest video, I believe. They were showing like the old guy, doing the thing, but he was running the pressure washer machine. And I was like, that I know that face and that little profile anywhere. That's Quinn Toffer. That's still, and I was like, he's old now because we're in our 40s, and we're approaching 50. But I was like, that little rugged face is Quinn with the little. He's still got like the reddish blonde hair, but like now it's a little gray on the sides. But so Misha goes and runs and gets Quinn. He comes and sees me, and he's like, "Oh my God." He drags me into the RPFIC's office, and he's like, "She is dying." Like he's shaking me, and I'm just like ragdolling. And he's like, "What is wrong?" Like he berates the RPFIC in front of me. He's like, "If I ever find one more RPFer in this condition, that's it. Like you're going to the RPF." And then he takes me out of the room and he takes me to all of you where to USC Medical Center, where they tell me, because this is the great care we're getting, guys, when you go to these emergency rooms. They're like, "Oh, well, you haven't lost that much blood. We have a woman on the 3rd floor who's lost 2/3 of her blood, and she, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I'm probably dying. And they're like, "Oh, you're fine." They take a scan of my ovaries. I've got all these cysts on my ovaries, all this other stuff going on. I don't even know what any of that means. And I keep telling them, I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out. They're like, "You're fine. You're fine." And
Garbage. Sorry.
oh, that's okay. That's okay. And as I'm signing out, because they're like, "You have to go now, ma'am. You've taken up too much of our space." I literally pass out. I just, I fall back. And I wake up in a room with like a banana bag attached to my arm. And they're like, "Oh, wow, you weren't kidding. Your blood count is very low." And I was like, "I fucking told you." Like, I'm dying.
That aspect, that one thing. So when you said, so I hate using the word triggering because some people use that word.
It's
much like that person earlier, like, it's like, "I'm triggered." And it's like,
yeah,
no, you didn't like how you're feeling.
Yeah.
But trigger, like, as in like my body had an actual somatic feeling.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because no, it's okay. It's something that I've been working through and working for myself is actually telling people when I'm in pain and when I'm sick. And then most importantly, giving myself rest, because I have that mentality of like, there's no case on post.
No, there's no case on post.
But if you're
playing in baseball,
exactly. But if your post is being a stay-at-home mom, well, then you can't ever stop.
Right.
And so like for years, I would clean and organize and run and cook all the whole house until the point where my legs were throbbing and I was in tears. Yeah. And Julian would be like, why did you just keep doing it? You should have rested. I'm like, I can't. I have to. There's no case on post and I can't do these things. And it's like, these are things that are also, again, depending on how in your parents were. You may have been raised with never being told that. Never being told you're acting out and so you have Overton withholds, or you're in a danger condition or a liability condition, treason. Yeah. Or you may never be told no case on post.
Yeah.
And so it's like that thing where it's almost like to the point where I have had to learn to actually, when I go to the doctor, not be like, "I'm okay. I'm experiencing these things," like that, like disassociative, like
I have been bleeding for 17 days straight. Yeah. And I passed out on the way here while driving, but it's okay now because I parked just fine. If you could validate that for me on the way out, I would love that. My pain is at a 25 out of 10, but
but I can keep going. Like, I mean, I
don't complain.
We talked about this a little bit, but my migraines started when I was very early on in my staff career, like blinding, debilitating, puking.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was at work after I'd left staff, I was at a job and I still had that like staff mindset and I had a migraine and I was like throwing up and I finally was like, I think I need to go to the doctor. And I kid you not, I'm driving to the doctor and I'm like, I'm going to throw up. And luckily I had a diaper that was clean. And I threw up because I was a nanny. And so I happened to have a diaper in my car. And so literally on the 2 freeway, driving up north to Glendale.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
And then I like wrapped the diaper. I'm like, thank God the diaper was there.
Right? You're like solved.
Yeah. But I was at that point before I said, I think I need to go home. you know?
Yeah. No, we will literally work until we pass away, guys. I want to hey Aaron. Aaron's like, I've come in at an awkward point. Yes. As usual, Aaron, your entrance is awkward, but wonderful. And thank you for being here. I do want to address this here. So Treasure Rescue, aka Queen Bean. What is case on post? So your case in Scientology, that means like all of your emotional, physical trauma. Okay, that's your case. Anything that is upsetting, anything that is, like controversial, anything that you have a feeling about that isn't like, I got it.
What's
misemotion?
It's misemotion, which is
right.
in Scientology defined as an emotion that's inappropriate to the circumstances. Correct. And that's where, that's dangerous, because when you're on staff and you're going,
emotion
I don't feel good, I have my period. No, that's an inappropriate reaction right now.
No.
We're clearing the planet.
Yeah.
And this is war. And we have to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's also like, again, and then you're told when you're a kid being a student, well, that's your post. So you can't yell, you can't cry, you can't scream. Yeah. You're just supposed to be there and basically disassociate and continue going through everything until the products are done.
Yeah. Aaron says hi.
Finally, Aaron remembers me. We were right next door to each other. And I literally would regularly go over to that HGC because I would coordinate to get staff audited either through someone who was on their internship or the BC was a big place that I could get a lot of the briefing course for those who don't know.
Yeah.
It's a course that has you read every single red volume, every single lecture, every single written technical bulletin. That might not
years, guys.
Yeah,
years.
The
levels on the courses are A through is it K? Is the last level on the BC?
I don't remember, but yeah, that's a lot.
Alphabet, and you have to finish all of these things. And then you do an internship, which can also take years for people to become a full class. But then you're everything. Apparently,
every technical. Yeah, and I think that's why David Miscavige has taken it away, because if you actually read everything and you're smart enough to read everything, you can see the difference. You can see the contradiction. Like how many times, especially as a word clear, did someone be like, well, this policy says this, but this policy says that. And you're like, well, what year was it made?
Right.
Can we think about that? It's like, and you're like, so did it cancel it? And it's like, well, we don't cancel anything, but what date was the other one written? Like all these different things to kind of justify the insanity.
Yeah, but the case on post, you do that to yourself, right? So you get told that all the time. If you disagree with somebody, if they're like, hey, I need you to, you're the word clear in the course room. And it's like, oh, by the way, I need you to go get a car and go pick up this student who's stuck in the valley. You got to go get them in here right now. And I'm like, that's not my job. Oh, right. Case on post, like anything that is
backflash case on post, knock it off. You have counter intention to clearing the planet.
Right. You're just supposed to go do whatever you're told to do. And then no matter what, you're going to get in trouble anyway. Like I can't tell you, because I was one of the few people who had a driver's license that was active and I could drive a stick shift. Okay. It was like I had a superpower. So then I could drive all these vehicles that we had, and I would get told to go around and go get people and do all this stuff and drive all these places. And they'd be like, you're never at your desk. It's like, you told me to go drive on the freeway. Like,
right.
You have to pick. I can't be in two places at once, and it's just like, it's always contradictory, but you're always making it make sense.
Right.
You're always like working it out in your mind why it's okay. And like, I've worked really hard to be like, the same thing, like I don't feel good, and then I have to like really talk about it to my wife to be like, well, here's what's happening, and then being okay with being downstat and just like sleeping.
The shame that comes in.
So much shame.
That's the process and cycle of being in the Sea Organ on staff, is that you're shamed constantly for having needs and having boundaries, and so you leave, and if you don't take the time, if you don't notice, you don't take the time to actually be like, I got to work on this, then you end up dying of a heart attack because you're like, I'm just going, and I don't need anything. And I just have to. It's like, no, we're actually humans. Like, you wouldn't expect a dog to be like, oh, you have a broken paw? Doesn't matter.
Walk it off.
Yeah, walk it off. Do you need to go take a walk to get in present time?
Yeah. Now people say angrily, go touch grass, right? But then it would be like, just go, take on the RPF, take a lap, and go run a lap, guys. On the RPF was a mile. If you got assigned a lap, you had to run a mile in your construction steel toe boots with your equipment on. Okay. And you had to do that shit fast. This was not low, like 20-minute mile crap bowl. You had to be, 5-minute mile. You better be hustle. We were all becoming marathoners. I tell you, one day I had like 50 laps to do. And I was just like, I'm going to take my time, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, you're like, I got a side stitch. I can't run anymore. I'm sorry. But I remember, like, even with my mom, like, that was part of how we were raised. It's like, if we were being banky or having case,
right,
we were sent to do MEST work, matter, energy, space, and time. So that meant sometimes my mom would be like, give my sisters and brother a machete and go weed whack the back hill.
Right.
So these kids are like 9 or younger with machetes and just whacking the yard up a hill in the desert in Palm Springs. No supervision. And it's like, same for me. It was like, if I were Casey or Bank on Post, I would be sent to go clean a toilet or go scrub the floors or go
scrub the walls.
Yeah. And part of that problem with that is that when you're having these big feelings and you're like, I don't know what this is, it starts to become this automatic thing. Oh, I'm just going to go clean. I'm upset, so I'm going to go clean.
Yeah.
But you're not taking the time to go like, why am I upset? What happened? What boundary was crossed that I need to communicate about?
Yeah.
You're just trying to literally disassociate and get through that feeling.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just what's horrific now is I still have that impulse when I'm really upset and I'll be like in an argument with one of my teens. They're just like, brah, 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 blah, and I'm like, I just start like cleaning the kitchen while I'm like aggravated with them. And it's it's just this automatic drilled in thing. Like, I'm upset. I have to clean.
Yes.
And it's like, I hate it. I hate that like my biggest impulse when I start getting frantic, it's just like, okay, this is in disorder. Let me get this out.
Yes.
And like, I'll keep talking to my wife and she's like, can you just sit still? I'm like, I can't. I have to be cleaning.
That's what I tell my therapist. They're like, can you just have a moment? I'm like, ugh!
Yeah.
I literally will like want to vomit. Like, I'm like, this is so against the core belief that was forced on me.
Right.
But it's something like, I mean, again, cleaning until my hands are literally chapped and bleeding.
Yeah.
And like your feet are throbbing.
That
and your back aches. Yeah. That's how you know everything's good, is if you are from head to toe in pain. And then at that point, you exhausted yourself so physically that you don't have any energy to be mad anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, I'm just going to go to sleep now.
Yeah.
But then nothing never resolves.
Yeah. I want to say something. We're getting a big talk in the chat here about periods. And I want to say, let's do this, people who have periods. Let's normalize talking about it because, now there's this TikTok trend where women are going in the bathroom and putting like a face peel on and then peeling it off in front of their male significant other and be like, and they're like, oh, good. Oh, look at this month. It's so good. And they're making a joke about like women shedding a layer of skin every month as like part of their period. And the guys are like, what is happening? Why? This happens every month.
Isn't it so weird how
like they're just
don't understand?
No, and it's because, guys, if you go back to schooling, like I did go to public school, in biology class, they talk a lot, and this happened to me too. Same exact thing, super low iron, but because I was like in sports, I played basketball, tennis, and softball. I lettered in those 3 in high school. You would literally just keep going and you just go through the pain. Like when you see those booths that they put up in some like fairs where they have the period like, cramp. It can make your body cramp up like a period cramp. And they put them on men. They put them on firefighters.
I love those videos.
Military guys. They collapse at like a 4, and the women just come by and they're just like, "Is it on? Is it on? Let's put it up to 10." Oh yeah, that's a 10. That's a 10. Yeah. That tracks. And we're just sit there and we're just like, and guys are like grasping for air. They can't breathe. And we're like, yeah, bitch, this is what we're doing every month.
Yeah.
Then you want food, I clean house, and you want like us to look like, a blow up doll all at the same time. And we were sold a bag of lies as kids. All of the period product ads were like, now I can go horseback riding thanks to Tampax. Like, what? No one is doing that. No one is like, hey, you know what? I've got my period. You know what's a great idea? Let me go on a horseback. Let me get on that horse. Like,
out of all things. No, thank you.
I mean, they finally said that science is, saying that period cramps are equivalent to heart attack pain.
Yes.
Like, we are going through a heart attack every month, guys. Every month. And it is, we just keep going. And so then put on cherry on top of that cult dogma that says you must never express like feelings that are negative. Okay. And it turns the female superpower of, just battling through this fucking life that we have. Yeah. It turns it up to 11, which is awful. It's awful. And we all go through so much and we don't take the time to be like, this is what this is. And then I saw a different TikTok where this young Indian man was talking to his little brother who's 12. And he's like, well, now that you're 12, you're a man. So we're going to go over some stuff. And he showed his little brother like videos about what happens to a woman with her period. And the little brother's like, they go through this every month. And he was like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That is terrible. Like, and he's like, okay, now we're going to do the super important thing. You're going to go buy, because he has a girlfriend, right? His 12-year-old brother. He's like, now you're going to go and you're going to buy some tampons. You're going to learn to go in the store and figure it out. And so he's like, and then he's like, what does this mean? He's like, I'm going to promise to take care of, my women and give them love and rest during this time, because that's what they need. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this is, I want this guy, and he's like 16 or something, or 17, the older brother. Right? And I'm thinking like, that has to be taught, like they have to understand that it is just like, but conversely, when I was in the course room, all the girls knew that one supervisor, Sean, who was a guy, if they were just like, Sean, I'm having my period today, he'd be like, leave, go, just go. And finally I saw all these women, these young girls leaving. And I was like, what, Sean, what's happening? And he's like, they have their period. And I was like, so? Like, it made me so unempathetic to be in the Sea Org. I was like, I called them back in the course. I was like, get back in here. Let's go. We're going in the other room. Sit down.
Find your words.
You have your period? Oh, guess what? I also have my period. What am I doing? I'm clearing the planet. Sit your ass down and find your MU. You have your period. And like, I just had no empathy, just none. Like, and it took me so long to like be able to be like, somebody's in pain. And I was like, oh, okay, let's, not like touch us this moment, like be quiet, but like, oh, that's important. Like,
let me create space and be there with you, and just let you know that, like it's valid and you are experiencing something, and I'm going to be here with you. It's just crazy. Such a different, it's literally like the opposite mindset, and that's where it's really hard to unlearn those things, especially if you've been conditioned for a long, long time, over years, to be like that. And then you continue to work for Scientologists who are like, well, are you taking magnesium every day? Are you taking your cow mag? If you're taking your cow mag, you won't have any period cramps. I do it. I don't have any. And it's like, I get it. Some women don't have period cramps.
Which is, hey, hats off to you. Good job. This is a great quote from VTV. You can watch horror movies with people tearing each other apart, but some period blood is like the worst thing ever, please. But then I have to make a big deal when you show me your peen 12 times, grow up. Exactly. If you can't talk about periods, vulvas, or vaginas, you don't get access to mine. That should be a rule. That should be a rule for people with vulvas and things. Hey, if you can't have an open and honest discussion about all the body parts, because I don't know what your parents told you about sex, but my mom was basically like, don't do it. It's disgusting. And just get married and then have a baby and you'll figure it out. And I was like, wait, what?
I was told that sex was only for creating babies.
Mm-hmm.
And that anything else was being promiscuous and basically being a degraded being. And for years, I'm still working on it. Like I've talked to Serge about this. It's something where I have to get out of the mindset. Like I feel shame and guilt having a partner and engaging in sexual activity because
everything's dirty, right?
Yeah, everything's dirty and bad. And I mean, it doesn't help also when you're having, not only are you being told something, but then if you are experiencing others agreeing to that, it confirms to the brain like, oh, yes. So this person said, oh, yeah, I had sex with this random person. Oh, well, that obviously, see, I was told that it was an overt. They're admitting it's an overt. So therefore, it's definitely an overt. And if I do that, I'm really bad.
If you want it, if you like it, if you get tingly feelings at a movie, you're a bad person. Yeah. All sex is bad. I mean, I went through that. I'll be honest. Like, and I think I've talked about this, but maybe not. But like when I got married to the father of my kids, I was really like, I had just come out of the Sea Org and, for being the gay. And my whole family was like, okay, so you're gay. Like, all right, go get it. Go get that, pussy snatch. Go find, have fun. Like they were literally all like team gay. And I was like, fuck you. I'm going to like have a baby and I'm going to get married and I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm not, and I dug my heels in and I was on a quest to lose my virginity at 24. Right. And so this was a lot harder, guys, than I thought. That I thought I could just walk into a bar and be like, I want sex. Please have sex. And guys were like, I don't know, this is kind of fast, like I didn't know how to do these things. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And then finally, Cameron and I went on a date. My sister hooked us up. I'd known him for over a decade because we just were in, things together and stuff. And so we were like friends. And so we sat down and we did an admin scale. So romantic. Scientology.
So romantic.
Like where you guys decide if your goals and purposes are aligned, guys, across all of the dynamics, across all your personal org board. Okay. It's so fucking stupid. So we basically went on this date and we both decided that like, the things that we wanted were the same. I wanted to have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. And he was like, cool beans. I can get behind that. But then he wanted to like kiss me at the end of the date. And he was still smoking cigarettes. And I was like, well, I don't kiss anybody who smokes. So he quit that night. And then that's when I knew true love.
Exactly. Isn't that so interesting too? Is like, it goes back to that promiscuity and the tone scale and the chart of human evaluation that we talked about, and the fact that like finding a mate and getting married and having babies and not dating all these other people.
Sure.
That's validated in Scientology. It's like you found a Scientologist. You guys have the same admin skill. Great. Get married. What's the problem? Like, why are you Q&A?
Yeah. No, you just, you guys know it's right. Just do it. There's no like further investigation. There's no further like trying to get to know each other. Like I really applaud Aaron and Jenna for having the conversation that they had about their experience being married in the Sea Org and then carrying those marriages forward into real life, because there is no, real engagement period, guys. There's no getting to know you. There's no like, ew, you snore. Oh God, you pick your teeth after you eat. Like, you fart all the time. Like I don't know if I
meet someone literally, and a week later, some people even get recruited specifically just to be like, I have someone who is going to want to marry you.
I've got a match for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a match. It's like, it's just insane. And if you marry someone based off of you're in the Sea Org, you're and I'm in the Sea Org, let's do this. Why not? I think you're pretty. I think you're handsome. Let's go. But then you try and leave, and there's the shame of like, if you break up, you have ovaries.
Correct.
And you have to get over that. You have to get over that shame and that false narrative that being divorced isn't meaning that you have crimes against your spouse.
No, you just have crimes against humanity because you didn't make it go right.
Right, exactly. And if you're not compatible in life, then it's like you're not compatible. It's okay. It's not like it doesn't make you some degraded being magically.
No.
And that's the thing. Is like, again, same with Sea Org and same with staff. It's like being like, oh yeah, I'm dating this person, then I'm dating this person. No, doesn't even work on staff. You can't do it. You cannot do it, even if you're not in the Sea Org. It's like, if you're found out to be going and making out with several different people in a short period of time, oh, you're going to ethic. I'm sitting you down as the staff section officer, and I'm going to ask every single question, and I'm going to find out everyone you kissed.
Yeah.
What did you do? How did you do it? Where did you do it? It's like,
yeah, it's bad, guys. It's bad. There's no privacy. There's no even like having secret feelings for somebody. Everybody's going to find out. And they're gonna,
like a withhold.
Oh,
like you're withholding it for some reason.
Awful. It's awful. And the other thing is, like, it really destroys your own personal idea of love, of real love, because you're not allowed to show that to your family anymore once you're on staff or in the Sea Org. You're not allowed to embrace people because that's too deflowing. Any sort of like natural affection, as an example, like let's say a student has an upset and they come to course and they're like, oh my God, guys, my dog just died and I'm so sad. Like, and they're bawling. My natural inclination as a human is to wrap my arms around that person and just, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right, and you cannot do that. You cannot love people. Like, I got in trouble all the time because I didn't give two shits. I was like, okay. And so my students knew that I genuinely cared about them, because I got invested in their lives. I would find out all the things about them. And yes, I did use those things to my advantage as as somebody in the courtroom to, all the things I knew, I would steer them towards being in Scientology. But I still genuinely think about many of my students now to wonder, like, Jesus, like I fucking made that person come to course so much, or I did this, that, and the other thing. And I've apologized anytime I've come across somebody that I was in the courtroom with, and used my powers of, affection to manipulate them. I've personally apologized when I can find them, or if they'll speak to me, because frankly, I'm, a big bad SP and nobody wants to talk to me. But, it was a blessing and a curse. Like, people knew that I could get through to people because I actually had real affection for human beings. But then it was also used against me constantly, saying, that I was too this, too that, too emotional, too, getting involved. And then I would make friends, like real friends with celebrities, with people in power at other orgs and stuff, because I would remember certain things. Like, I have a really good memory. Like, they would come in and be like, oh, you know what? I really wish they had Diet Pepsi at the cafe, but they only have Coke. And so I'd be like, next time I see that person, I'm going to go to Gelson's. If they're coming over, I'm going to go to Gelson's and buy some Diet Pepsi and put it in the fridge for them. And they would show up and I'd be like, hey, I heard you were coming by today. And they're like, you remembered I like Diet Pepsi? And I'm like, yeah, of course I did.
Of course. I have that same kind of memory where it's like, I'm like, yeah, of course I know your favorite ice cream. You mentioned it one time 5 years ago.
Yeah. Like, doesn't everybody in your life remember that?
But I don't remember your phone number, because that's not how my brain works.
Right. But it's like, people would just be like, wow, you're crazy. You're amazing. It's like, no, I just knew, like, I understood the human psyche in a way that we weren't supposed to, because we weren't actually supposed to care. We weren't actually supposed to engage in humanity with other people. Right. We were supposed to just be this perfect robot spitting out Scientology and making sure what came back to us was what we just spat out. And
Right.
if it wasn't, does not compute, fix it. And
Right.
that was it. We weren't supposed to be anything other than like an input output machine for this, you know, whatever the fuck it is, cult, to do this stuff. So we, you know, learning to be human again, you know, and take back, like we were just talking about sex and stuff. It's like, it took me years. And this was part of my coming out journey to realize, like, not only did I think every time I had sex, I was dirty, filthy, disgusting, like I'm going to go shower now, even though I was in a consensual, you know, loving relationship with my ex-husband. Like I really would just tell myself every day, this is okay. I love him. Things are good. I want these kids, you know, and I was trying to like reprogram myself, but I couldn't, because there was a piece of me that was like, this is not the droid you're looking for.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
And so it was like, I fought against that for over a decade. And people are like, why did you stay with your husband for so long? Why did you ever get a husband? You know, and I'm like, you guys have to understand like how deep the programming goes, and to fight against that and strip that away without therapy was impossible. Like I went to therapy, and that's where I first was like, okay, let's talk about it. I was like, no one's come to tackle me. Like I'm not dead. You know,
you didn't shun me just now. Are you sure? Right. You know, and it's those small things that add up over time to finally get our brains to have new pathways, new neurons firing together to create, because it's like, again, blueprint of Scientology. We were in Scientology. We were raised in Scientology, but that's our past. And we need to put space between us so that we can focus on new ways. And it's like,
I think about you saying that to me when we went to lunch, like every day, because I keep saying the words like I did, you know, this, and I have to change my vernacular, you know, because I still, you know, and that's like what happened yesterday when I was talking to Serge, because we were talking about those things and I brought up my dad and all this stuff. And I firmly put myself like into my own personal trauma. And my wife reminds me every day, like, be gentle with yourself. You don't have to share everything. You know, people watch your channel just for you. They don't have to like know everything. You know, you leave some stuff for therapy. And yesterday I thought, oh, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling good. I'm going to talk about this thing because, you know, I like to, you know, I don't know. Sometimes it's like, it's this compulsory, like I'm a real, you know, person and these things really happen. And, you know, there's trolls out there trying to say, well, you know, they got a whole conspiracy theory going on me, guys, that I'm actually a secret CIA spy and was the whole time. And, you know, because I've had so many lives, guys. It's called getting married and changing your name legally on your paperwork. It's really not revolutionary. It's not unique to Scientology. Put one in the chat, women, if you've gotten married and changed your name, because that's how that works for the people out there, the incels on the internet who have never had a partner and given them their name. So.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, half the people who are probably trolls I imagine are just OSA people sitting in their office on the computer and not having a real understanding of how life really works.
Thank you.
Again. So they're going, they're going, oh, Nora is a lesbian. That's bad. And you're like, no, only you think lesbians are bad because you've been brainwashed to believe that. The average person doesn't even care. They don't even care. They're like, I'm dealing with my own shit. I don't care. You're not murdering babies, are you?
No.
Good. I don't care. I don't care then.
Moving on. I got to go get groceries at Costco. Like,
exactly. Like,
no, but this is what I'm talking about. But it's like us reprogramming ourselves from this like obsession of the minutia of the minutia of the minutia, right? To be able to see and enjoy real life it's a lifelong struggle, guys. This is not like you just go to therapy a couple years and you're good. Oh, I'm going to meditate. Now I'm all better. I'm going to take Lexapro and everything's great. It's not, you know, none of those things are a one stoppy shoppy solution. Unlike Scientology, where they're like, you just do this level, you know, you do grade 0 and now you can communicate to anyone about anything.
Getting over that hump that hump of that idea, like, well, I read this book. Now that I've left, I should be handled.
Right.
It's that almost that same concept where, like, for years I've been like, but I did all these things, and why is it still coming in?
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
Therapists and professionals over and over again are going, well, this was your life for 30 something years.
Yeah.
It's going to probably take you about the same amount to be able to work on undoing it. And you probably will never undo it all the way because of the fact that those pathways physically have been created.
Yeah.
And while we can create new pathways, there's still the possibility of hopping onto that other pathway. And
it's still
so
there because we haven't fully disconnected it. And now let's talk about this for just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
When you were growing up and you were in Scientology, what did you think the brain did?
It was, I was told that you have basically, you as a Thetan are the thing, the being, and you're not connected into your body, you're just around. And that the brain is a switchboard between the Thetan and the body. And so if something damaged with the brain, it meant that the Thetan couldn't communicate with the body properly. Right. And that you had your own case and and that wasn't part of you, but you had it. And so I, as a kid being 3, when I was explaining this, I always pictured it as like, I have a briefcase of my reactive mind. Like it was my little briefcase. And I had my brain, which is just the same as like my heart. It doesn't do anything on its own. I'm the one who's making, and it's again, that thought of like, I'm the one who creates everything. But no, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't.
No.
If that was the case, then all Scientologists would have won the lottery at least once.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's like we were basically told, guys, and this is how I thought of it my whole life, is that the brain was completely irrelevant. It was just like you said, like a switchboard, and it's just kind of like, it's just there. It doesn't matter. It's useless. It's just jello between your head. All this psychology, psychiatry, all this concentration on the brain, they're lost because they don't recognize the spirit, and the spirit is all, and all this stuff, to the point where when I was in 7th grade, attending public school, shout out to Altamira Junior High in Sonoma, I had an art class. Okay. And so I'm learning to draw. That's all we're fucking doing. But the art teacher was like, well, art is a left-brained activity and analytical thought is from the right brain. And I went, no. Stop. I got out of that class with a religious objection because I so believed that he was trying to indoctrinate me in false doctrine that the brain had anything to do with my creativity or anything. I was like, nope. Can't talk about the brain in front of me, or I'm dropping this class. So like when he would start to do stuff, he would just be like, for everyone in the room but Nora, this is what this is, and blah, 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 blah. And I just was so like, That's not what's happening.
And you're a kid. You're 7th grade.
I was 13 and I was telling the teacher off. And just like, you don't know the brain. You're an idiot.
Exactly. And that's part of the narcissistic part of Scientology, is that you start to believe that everything you read puts you superior to everyone else, and that you're better, and that people who would consider even arguing with you, even especially as a 13-year-old, I'm not 13, my body's 13, and I know so much more than you. My parents are OTs. I'm already clear.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like, it's just this whole thing that, again, I liken it to, there are some religions who are so convinced that the rapture's coming, right? Like
we've been hearing about that our whole lives, guys. Like,
right. But Scientology, and everyone goes, that's crazy. It's not going to happen. No one believes it except these distinct small groups of people. And Scientology is like that, but with every aspect of life. Yeah. It's not, because everyone in this world is creating sins, we're all going to die. It's like everything you do is evil until you get rid of your bank, until you get rid of your bank briefcase and only have the free Thetan. And then you can operate outside of your body. You don't even need a body anymore. Right. You can just handle everything.
The universe, guys.
You can you can make things, create things, and it's like,
You're
Again,
a god. You become a
yeah,
god.
yes, a demigod type thing. It's like it really is that, and that's again part of the undoing process.
Yeah.
It's like we have to be like, oh, we're just fucking humans,
Just a regular old
like a dog,
47, almost 48-year-old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, my birthday's coming up. I'm turning 48, guys.
When's your birthday?
It's on the 14th. It's on Tuesday.
Oh,
it's coming up, guys. Birthday time in the city.
I'm going to turn 42 this year.
I'm turning 42 this year. You're a wee baby.
I am a wee baby.
You're younger than my wife. Look at you. Just a wee baby, a little
like
millennial.
I say, cult baby.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I have actually art that I work on. That's like my phrase. It's like cult baby and normies.
Cult baby and normies, yeah.
Yeah, a normie is so vital when you're leaving
Yeah.
because they'll show you and express things that are normal.
Right.
And then you'll also tell them stories and their faces are like, that's not normal.
See, like we're telling stories right now, guys, and the chat, it blows up. And it's like if Catherine and I were at a dinner party and let's say we were the only two Scientologists and we just started like recounting horrific incidents from our youth, people at the table, I've made people weep. Like friends of mine from high school that they knew when I went off to the Sea Org, and then now they've seen me since, like at reunions and stuff. And they literally just weep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
And it's like almost like, oh, I'm sorry that my trauma upset you. I didn't even realize. And that's the thing is like, a lot of it I didn't recognize as trauma. You just go, yeah, that's just how it was. But then when someone goes, by the way, that's horrible. That's not normal. And you're like, it's not normal? You didn't do that?
Right. Or you're just like, I'm fine. I'm just telling you the story because you're always brushing it off, whatever the trauma is. And so thank God I have a great therapist now, Nina. Shout out to my therapist, Nina, who she doesn't watch my content, by the way. She's like, that would be a breach of trust. And I was like, wow, really? And she's like, no, because that's, even though you're talking about your trauma and stuff, that's not, unless you're showing me a specific portion of an episode, whatever you've put out, then it's not for me to come and just be like, so I want to talk about what you said when you were live with Serge. Let's discuss. It's like, if I'm ready to discuss whatever, then I need to be in that intimate moment with her, being vulnerable. And then we tackle it together. And I'm like, wow, that's wild.
Isn't it so different? It's just like, it's coming from a point of care.
Yeah.
And empathy.
Yeah.
And creating the space. And it's like, it would be like her spying on you in a way. We don't think of it as spying. We're like, just watch the video. But
it makes my brains, I got to explain all this stuff twice.
I've tried to get therapists when I'm new. I'm like, if you could just find the podcast I was on, that'll give you a summation of life. Like, I don't want to spend 2 hours on intake giving you all my main traumas. And they're like, we didn't actually need to talk about all those today. And I'm like,
don't do that all at once.
Oh, you don't want me to word vomit all the things that I can think of that we're like, I'm like, it's like almost like, when you go in for a DFP, a director of processing interview. And that's when you spill your guts.
Just barf it all out.
I've been promiscuous. I've been overeating, or I've been having thoughts of death, or you just word vomit. They take notes, and then there's a program written to fix you.
Yep.
And, I keep going to therapy, with that mindset, and they're like, Catherine, we got to slow it down. We're going to just take one thing. And I'm like, okay, we're going to just take one thing and I love it.
Like, I just want to know what happened since I last saw you. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, can you just tell me what happened last week?
Yeah.
How did you deal? Oh, your teen had tell me about that. How did you deal with that? You're like, no, you don't understand. When I was 5, like, no. Hey, pause.
Yeah.
Just pause that.
We need to teach you to not flood first. That's one thing was like, and I see with observation of ex-Scientologists, flooding. It's a very good word to understand.
Yeah.
Flooding is when our triggers, our trauma have overtaken our brains, the
Mhm.
images, the sensations. So you get somatic, you can have
Yeah.
visual flashbacks, you can have audible flashbacks. All these flashbacks are coming in and you're raging and you're almost to the point of disassociating and you're going, I fucking hate it. Ah! Or
Yeah.
maybe even for me, I'm a hysterical crier to the point like I'm like, I'll send myself into a panic. And I'm like,
you just, like,
and the therapist is like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay. You know, like a little
Just
kid who's like
not
in this-
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buggy, like go through a whole box of tissues, like tears streaming down. I'm like,
Oh God.
and they're like,
yeah,
we're not
no,
going to
it's
do that.
so
We're
much.
not gonna
And my
talk
wife
about it.
will even be like, okay, there's a lot. Hello, hi. She'll like have to like literally like hold me and be like, come back,
Right,
come back.
right.
Where are we? Who am I? You know, just like feel my, you know, like
Yeah,
literally bring me
like
back
the
to reality because
senses
I
type
will
thing.
be gone. I'm in the stratosphere. I am
Right.
just, you know,
Exactly.
and just remind me, you're safe.
Mhm.
You're here with me. Everything's okay.
Right.
I love
Nobody
you.
hurt you.
And I'm like, why am I
You're-
terrible?
Yeah,
Shit.
you're a good person. I'm having a hard time.
Like, yeah.
And you know, it's like Julian and I have had to learn to do that for each other.
Yeah.
Because I mean, let's be honest. When you learn to be like, knock it off,
Yeah.
and that's just normal.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
you
just
say
like,
that to your husband, you go, knock it off. Just do what I asked you. I don't care if you're sick or
right.
you know that you're in a bad. Knock it off. You know, and it's like we had to learn to be like, you're having a hard time, and I can see that.
Yeah.
What can I do to help you in this moment? What can I do to support you? It's like we've spent 4 years learning that. 4 years of we have a code word when I'm having a full-blown panic attack because I'll get flashbacks and I'll have a full panic attack and my first instinct is to go into the closet and hide. And that I think came from specifically when I was on staff. I would go find the staff course room that was never used.
Right.
I would go and hide in the closet. And because it was so deep in, you couldn't hear. I would hysterically be crying. I'd be hitting my head. I'd be screaming at myself going, why the fuck can't I just get my stats up? What out of ethics am I doing? Why am I such a fucking horrible person? I just want to die. And it's like we take those with us because these are the beliefs that we're taught, we're observed, we experience. And then when we leave, it's like I text Julian watermelons. Or I have to shout it. And all he does is he comes and he holds me and he does breaths so that I can regulate again. And it's like that the fact that we have to learn to do that for each other just goes to further prove that like not only is Scientology as a whole bad, but if you're on staff or in the SO, have more empathy for those people because they've probably been through a lot worse than you even realize.
Oh, no. I mean, we were there. We know. I mean, on the weekly, if you didn't have your stats up, you may as well just walk the plank. Just walk, you know, get the fuck out of there. And I used to go down to where the shredding room was because people weren't in there a lot and it was private. And then it was so far away, nobody could hear you. You know, and I would like just punch the concrete walls. Like, and my knuckles would get split, but that was like something I could hide for the most part. Because, you know, like everybody was just looking at my face because, you know, you have to have your TRs in. So you're not looking, don't be looking down here. Don't be looking at my other body parts because you're just confronting the person's face all the time. And so I would do that and it would like make me feel relief. But it's like in Scientology, the statistics that are the scariest, are not the ones that they brag about in these events. The statistics that are the scariest are divorce. It has the, if you're, no, Apple, if you were to, it's like, yeah, let's talk about divorce.
Thumbs up. We love divorce.
We love divorce, guys. Well, I've done it. So I technically I do.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not that big a deal. You're not a failure. It just, the relationship ran its course, guys, and that's it. And it's okay. I just think as a society, we have such a thing. But in Scientology, highest incident of divorce that you'll ever find in a small community, highest rates of cancer, deaths from cancer. And then the suicides people unaliving themselves. We just lost another person.
Yeah.
Recently. Did you know Shallon?
Yes.
Yeah. So guys, this is something that unfortunately, like, we have to deal with all the time. The person that we just lost was a great person. They were not a terrible human being. They were super sweet,
Very quiet.
very, artistic,
Mm-hmm.
A light, a real light that touched everybody. And the fact that now in their 40s, because we're all basically the same age, they decided it was the end for them.
Yeah.
Makes me incredibly sad, because everyone who's watched all my things knows that's been with me for a long time. And that's what I've been working through in therapy recently a lot, because it's like that impulse that you are nothing, that you have ruined all, not just yourself, your fam, all of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
is so powerful that you, like you just said, like, it's like if your stats were down for 1 week, if you didn't like get enough people into the courtroom in 1 week, then you're better off dead.
Yes, literally.
You're of more use going to get a new body and starting over, because
Exactly.
you're literally worthless.
Right.
And it is, everybody who leaves Scientology, I think, is on the struggle bus with that, whether they've said it out loud or not. With an on repeat skipping record of that type of mentality, that a lot of people unfortunately don't go seek therapy of any kind, because we're indoctrinated to believe that's evil. It's going to lobotomize us. It's going to do all these things. And they then end up the way Shallon has now, which is incredibly disheartening and sad,
Mm-hmm.
because all of us are important in our own way. We're all contributing to our tiny little bubble of life with our family or our close friends or our work or whatever. And all of that, even if you think you're insignificant in the world, okay, your actions upon this planet contribute in very small ways to everybody else around you.
Right.
And whether you feel it all the time, like, this is the thing I remind myself, is that it's not like I have an obligation to all these people, but this life means something.
Right.
It
That's one of the things,
means something.
right, is that concept that I am more than what I produce. I am more than what I give to others, my exchange.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
I'm still learning that me, just as a human, brings light to others and makes their life better. And that I'm worth living just for that. Not because I got all the laundry done and had dinner. Julian doesn't care about any of that.
Right.
I can literally text him and be like, I can't get out of bed today. Can you bring home dinner? He's like, of course.
He's like, yeah, cool. Got it.
Of course. No
Let's have some
judgment,
burgers.
no anything. It's like, it's still, though, the shame comes in. And, you know, I think I'm on double digits now of people I've known who've unalived themselves.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
My first experience of unaliving was at 11. And that was a very close, practically family member.
Yeah.
And it's just to watch over and over again these people who we've known, who brought light to our lives, not because they were a Scientologist. Like, there was still that bit of humanity where we're like, we just like that person. Like, there's something about them that gives me the little happy feels, and I like it. And then when you're like, I wish I could have been there for them. And you
why didn't they call me?
Right.
Why didn't I know that they were struggling? I could have.
They don't because
we're not allowed
feel
to.
like they're a burden. And that's how I felt. When I left Scientology and I ripped the Band-Aid off, I was like, I'm not a Scientologist anymore. I don't even deserve to live. And I had to, I have an app on my phone for emergency. It's my emergency plan. And I have, like, I've had to go through several times in my experience since leaving where I was like, watermelons, because I have to go, like, I want to end it all. I want to end it. I can't take this feeling that comes in. It floods me with like the shame and guilt. And I must be this horrible person because I couldn't be the Scientologist that I was expected to be.
Yeah.
And it's like learning that Scientology, fuck Scientology. You as a human deserve to live, and you bring light to people. And it's not because you're exchange in abundance or that you're such an upset Scientologist who's on course regularly and donating. Like that's the kind of friendships that you have in Scientology. It's like, oh, well, she's not active, so I'm not going to really talk to her.
Yeah,
it's not like people go, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're not active. It's like they just stop calling. They stop texting.
Yeah.
They just stop being your friend.
You're just shunned silently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then
everybody knows too.
Everyone knows. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, Catherine is, just, one thing was our flag rep, Megan, I forget what her name is, but she was like, she started the phrase of like off the rails. And we would call people who
off the rails. Yeah.
Off the rails. People who were not doing course, who were not going in session, who were not actively coming into the org, who were just, they're off the rails. Oh, they're off the rails. And it's this like blanket statement of like, they're not on track to live a good life.
No,
so we're on track.
Their train is on track. And my favorite was like foreign people could never get that concept. I was on the RPF with this Italian guy, Gigi Scudolari, who was so Italian. And he was like, hey, you're off the train. And you're like, no, it's off the rails. And there's so many like idioms that you use in Scientology. Let's see. Off the rails was one. What was the other one? We're gonna roll up our sleeves.
Yes.
And so Gigi's like, okay, everybody, roll up your arms and get to work.
That's the best.
I was like, I'm going to roll up my arms. Let's guys roll up your arms and get to work. Roll them up. The one time this German guy on the RPF was trying to, his twin, they were in session and his twin just like this, it was going really bad. So he was like, I'm going to save the day. And he tried to say, don't worry, I've got an ace up my sleeve. Like he was going to try and be like, cool guy. So he's like, he goes, don't worry, I've got my sleeve up my ass. And his twin, who was like practically in a coma, just starts hysterically laughing. And he thought he had said, I've got an ace up my sleeve. And then everyone around him's laughing. And we're all like, oh, Bert.
Oh, I'm sure he went to cramming and ethics for that.
He did, but I mean, he managed to like save his twin in the moment. His twin is just effing, and they ended the session. I've got my sleeve up my ass. But he said it with like such conviction. Just tell him, don't worry, I've got my sleeve up my ass. Let me get you through this.
Oh, we should do a video. I'd love to find someone who actually understands with that comatose in session. Like I've been there where it's like all of a sudden I feel like someone drugged me. I'm heavy. I couldn't lift up my arms. My head was flopping. My eyes was shutting. I ended up sliding out of my chair and laying on the ground. And my sweet auditor was pleading with me. Please, Catherine, we have to get you back in the chair. I know you don't want it. I was like, I can't do it, Naomi. I can't.
Yeah.
It's too much. And she's going, I know, but I'm going to get you. Please, please. And I knew it was like, at that point, I was doing it for her and not because I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to make me better.
Yeah.
Finally, I got out of it enough to but that experience, I was like,
it's awful. It's awful. And they say that's mass. That's your case. That's all of your lifetimes of pictures sitting on top of you. Right.
Yeah.
They tell you again, this is your problem. You're doing it. You're pulling in too much mass and you can't confront it all. You have to confront it and be able to disappear it. As is it. And that's what you're supposed to do. And it's like, I feel that way sometimes when I have a huge trauma response. It's the freeze response. If you're familiar with, fight, flight, or freeze. And I feel sometimes that will happen to me even now where I just it just feels like I'm underneath the ocean and I cannot see, feel. And I just and I'll tell my wife and I'll just be like, I have to lay down. I need an ice pack and I just have to calm and then just like listen to the Calm app, and then just like, I need to just sleep, and then I will sleep, and like I'll wake up and I'll be like, okay, I'm okay now.
Do you like fall, like it's so, you're like, you wake up, you're like, oh, something's off. Then you finally lay down and you fall asleep for like hours.
Yes.
Like not just an hour, but like
yes,
hours unconscious. And you know what I've thought of when that happens to me is I go, something must have gotten triggered. And hopefully my brain was taking that time to refile it in the proper area so that I could process it. Like I go, my brain must be saving me from all these images. And so that's where I've also learned to just take a lot of naps.
Yeah.
Because I have no other choice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do that too. I have to. Yeah. I just feel like, and I feel like that's something that we fight against, because taking rest, sleeping, caring for yourself, so not okay. So not okay. And it's, and I do want to say this, you know, I should have said at the beginning, because anytime any of us get together, should be just like trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. I do appreciate you guys still being here in the chat. If any of this is personally triggering for you, please take care of yourself. Please, you know, our discussion, we want to just shed light on this subject, and honor Shallon as well, because they're not going to even talk about it. They'll give some short story of what happened. Like when I did my interview with Mark Bunker, he learned stuff about Alexander Jentz's passing that he never knew, because they told all Scientologists that he was in his bed next to his wife and she woke up and he was just dead.
Yeah, right? And that apparently he had an allergic reaction to the antibiotics he was taking. And that's what I was told.
Right.
For Alex.
So my brother, he was the best man at my brother's wedding.
Oh, okay.
So I got into this. I was trying to it was my last ditch effort to try and pull my brother out of Scientology. And we got into an argument about this because this was his best friend and he was distraught. And I thought, this is going to be the thing that's going to get him out of Scientology, is like letting him know the truth about Alex. We were out to dinner at Sushi. And so we went over it and I was like, Chuck, you know, that's not what happened, right? And he's like, what do you mean? Of course it's what happened. And I was like, first of all, Alex was examined by the Los Angeles County coroner. You can find his coroner report. I had it on my phone waiting to show him. He's like, I don't want to see that's lies. And I was like, he wasn't in Texas with his wife. He wasn't in Houston. He was at his in-laws' house, and they didn't, you know, he had become addicted to opiates, to opiate painkillers, because he had a really bad car accident a couple years earlier. And, you know, he and his wife were separated. They were like about to go through a divorce. But of course, his two parents, where are they? He's disconnected from his mom, right? Because she's, you know, bad SP who's saying the truth about Scientology. And his dad's Heber Gents, who's in the hole. Who knows? He's like in his 90s now. He's in his 80s. No one's seen him for over a decade.
Yeah.
And so he didn't have anywhere to go. So his in-laws were like, well, we'll take the downstat on and we'll, you know, help him get a job so that he can pay alimony to our daughter, you know, basically like we'll take on the burden. So he was there and he got pneumonia. And instead of going to the doctor like you're supposed to, they were just, you know, walk it off. And so he started taking NyQuil. And that interacted in a very bad. How many celebrities have we lost from fucking NyQuil interacting with all the other drugs they're taking? So many. Philip Seymour Hoffman, you know, like other people. They just were like,
you don't realize it shuts down. Yeah, it just slowly shuts down. You stop breathing. Your heart stops. It's like you put yourself literally to sleep.
Yeah, no, it's insane. So that's what happened. But they were so uninterested in him, so not caring about him being sick or anything. They didn't check on him for 3 whole days. He was dead in his room for 3 days. And then the dad went to go check before he's taking his younger kid to school, goes in the room, finds the dead body, is like, well, going to have to handle that. Takes his young daughter to school, comes home, calls OSA, who then, you know, has to do a whole rigmarole. And then they call in the authorities, who then performed the autopsy and determined it was, you know, a bad drug interaction. It was an accident, you know, and then they concoct this short story where the wife is totally like, yep, found him in my bed next to me, and just sells this bag of goods to Scientology. It's the same way like Marie Bilheimer, who was on Leah's show. Her husband unalived himself.
I knew him.
I know, me too. Talk about a sweetheart. Talk about somebody who was
sweet, so kind.
Only the nicest, who grew up in horrific Sea Org conditions as a baby, was never touched the outside world until the end of his life. When he, had started, let's face it, exploring his sexuality a little bit. And that became too much for him because he got ticketed for solicitation by an undercover police officer. And so he knew his whole life was over. Now, what they told, so he unalives himself in what's now the test center.
Yeah.
While it was under construction to become the test center.
That's lit birthing up on the upper
above the Hollywood Inn there.
For management type people.
Yeah. So he's found by the people going to do the construction, by RPFers, who then, of course, report it. His wife is brought over while the police and everybody's still there. She told her story on the aftermath. Yeah. And then she has to then tell all other Sea Org members and everybody who witnessed his body has to continue the lie that he blew, that he ran away, and that he's just out there in the universe, that Aaron Poulin was just out there running around, living it up. He was so out ethics, and they told people that he had gotten a ticket for prostitution. And they were like, well, he's an out ethics prostitute and he's a DB and he just ran away. And so everybody in the Sea Org was told that he was this DB who ran away because he couldn't confront his overts, which is not what happened.
Right.
It's not what happened. And Marie ended up leaving shortly after that because, she couldn't live with continuing this lie because it was so insane. I'm sorry, guys. My group chat is going off here. But it
can be like, is that my phone?
No, it's on my computer and it dings. And our dear friends have just picked up the game Myrtle, which is like Wordle, but it's a murder mystery.
Ooh.
Myrtle. Anyway, so they're very into it. They're just texting our group chat about it. So, but these are the things, guys, when people unalive themselves, what's ironic is in, is it 88008? One of the early books, I have to remember, Lafayette goes over these processes, these basic processes, and they're called like R something. One of the processes was called R245. And he says it's an immediate but effective process for exteriorization. He was talking about suicide, about pew pew with a gun to yourself with a 45 caliber. And people always like laugh that off as if it wasn't a real thing. But as children, we read that and we were like, oh, that's a thing that's like you can do when you need to leave permanently.
Right.
That was never something. So like these struggles and stuff that are in there are from the founder. It's not.
And
it's
that
not unusual.
Specifically, that goes into when an OT person, a Scientologist, experiences an accident.
Yeah.
Point that they're unable to be a Scientologist, whether it's they become paraplegic or brain damage. Or anything, they'll go, okay, it's time to drop this body. Yeah. I'm deciding to drop this body. It's no good for me anymore. Yeah. And I'm going to end it. And it's those things where it's like, instead of being like, oh yeah, they committed suicide. It's like, no, they decided, they made the decision. They dropped the body because they're ready for a new body. Right. And that was theta and OT and it's like, again, it normalizes this thing of like taking your own life. And it's like, I think that's why it's important to, as ex-Scientologists, just to make our faces out there. Because what if there's someone who hasn't seen me in 20 years and all of a sudden sees it and goes, I can reach out to her. Yes. And she'll listen to me and I can talk to her. And then I go, that's worth it. Is it comfortable talking about our trauma and going over these things? No, I'll probably have to go sit outside for a while, regulate, maybe take a nap. But at the same time, it's like, I have an urge and a desire to help those who are struggling the same way I am or have. And I felt so alone in those times. Yeah. Especially when I left Scientology, I did not even trust anyone. Like Leah gave me your number. You texted me when I first left. You're like, hey, I'm Nora, and I'm in Beaverton. We're so close. And I was like, cool.
You're like,
And I was
bye.
like, I can't talk to
And
you
I was
about
okay
anything.
with that. I was like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Because my wife was like, oh, are you going to get together with Katherine? And I was like, I would, but I think she's not ready for that. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's okay. Like
Yeah.
when he's ready and we're ready to, hang, we'll do it because you don't trust anybody. You cannot trust, like, who's this girl?
Let's be honest. I sometimes wonder, even though my father has dementia, I'm like, is he a plant? What if he's a plant and he's faking? But the doctors have seen tests,
My
and
wife
so
was a plant from OSA, and then she's like, "Well, that would be kind of tricky, wouldn't it? Because we're having a lot of sex, so like
it doesn't matter. That's the thing.
I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what a plant would say.
Exactly.
This is exactly what they would say.
It's exactly what a plant.
You're a good actress.
We get new neighbors, and I'm like, I literally, as soon as I find out their name, I'm trying to Google them. I'm going, they have no internet presence at all. I go,
nope,
I'm not going to talk about it because I have a tendency to word vomit and say very private, personal things. And I'm like, nope, can't trust those people. I don't know. Nope. And I hope that one day that feeling will go away. I mean, obviously it is getting better because I reached out to you. I was like, let's be people together.
Let's do life.
Yeah. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it does. I think I appreciate that the most was that you gave me that time to be like, I felt like I was literally in a vortex. I couldn't find the ground. I couldn't find the walls. I couldn't find anything. And I felt like I was spinning and I couldn't feel reality. And it's taken 4 years of me finally going, this is reality. Scientology, that was something that I experienced that was not reality in a way, in terms of it was just all smoke and mirrors and lies. And that's why it's not reality. Like it's not that it didn't happen, but that it wasn't real life. When you go to someone and you go, hey, it really hurt my feelings that you didn't text me on my birthday.
Right.
The normal response is, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. Happy birthday. And you go, thanks. Okay. I just wanted to be able to communicate that it hurt my feelings. Yeah. That's all. It's not, well, why are you being Casey? I was busy, or, like all these things. And so it takes time. It takes time for everyone, and everyone's at their own process in place. But I always just hope that, if someone reaches out to me and like, hey, I'm scared, can you help me? I hope that's
it. And I'm working on the guilt associated with Shallon, the loss of Shallon, because like I have been a public person. It's not like we were super close or something. Like we knew each other because I was at CC and they were like a Celebrity Center public at the time. And, but I still feel this, like, I wish they would have, called me or texted me or, emailed me or something. I would have emailed back. I would have reached out. I would have reached out to every contact I have in LA and been like, you need to go to this place and see this person and help them, because it's just we are all suffering from the same exact internal struggle of I am not good. I failed. I am not worthy of whatever happiness has happened to me. And then on top of that, we're both moms. So we're trying in the same vein to deal with this cacophony of terror in our own minds about ourselves, while trying to put on this mom face to people growing up in this fucked up time, just existing, trying to navigate the internet and social media and, school for these people and all these things and obligations and fucking travel sports and all this other stuff, which is a cult all by itself,
it is.
So it's so much that at some point it's earlier this year, I had to be like, I'm calling mercy. I am not doing good.
Right.
I am not feeling okay. And the thing that you did that was so smart that I really applaud you for was some of your first steps after leaving were I'm going to go see a therapist, which is the hardest, most difficult thing for any Scientologist or ex-Scientologist to say is, I need help.
Yeah.
To say those 3 words is basically like you may as well just literally jump off a cliff because you cannot be.
You're a disgrace. You disgrace your group, your family. Yeah.
No. So it is important, and I want to go through some of the starred chats because they have stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. We can, we say, we can chat and chat and chat all day,
but we do need to go touch some grass after this, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna go touch some grass.
Susie,
I'm gonna find my cats, all my 5 cats.
I'm gonna go hug my dogs and take them for a walk and have some lunch because it's basically lunchtime.
That sounds good.
Yeah, right. Susie, the Spice Little Princess, thank you for becoming a member. Peter Anderson, question: any plans to attend the Safe Portland conference tomorrow at McMiniman's Kennedy School? PTS for Life, Apostate Alex, and Chris Shelton will be there. You know who else is going to be there? Me and Liz Gale. So yeah, tune in. We'll be there.
I didn't realize all those people are gonna be physically there.
Gonna talk. Annie's on a panel with Liz. So I'm going to go support my homie Liz and on her panel. It's going to be great. Yeah. No, I'll be there. And I'll try and do a live afterwards to talk about how that went and what happened. So I'm excited. Martha Simons, thank you for being a member. Many of the mandatory breaks and labor protections on jobs do not apply in right to work states like Florida. Yeah, it's true.
And that's why we have to, use our votes and communicate loudly. At one point, people had no rights at all, and unions were formed to say no. As a group of people who are the laborers, we say we deserve these things.
We want a weekend. You're welcome.
Florida is like the wild, wild west. Let's be honest. Like Grant Cardone lives there because he was like, I don't want to pay taxes, which is fine. I mean, I live in a state that doesn't have income tax, whatever. But it's like, but the way he says
don't have sales tax in Oregon, so that's why everybody who lives in Washington comes down here to the Costco.
Exactly.
Makes all the money in Washington. They got it figured out.
Yeah.
I know it's great to live in Oregon where you don't have to pay the sales tax anywhere. But then I was like, you know what? We're really getting the short end of the shift. When I was in Washington recently in Seattle, I was like, proportionately, everyone's like, it's so expensive. I'm like, actually, it's not. Things end up costing less in Washington. And I was like, this is a scam. This sales tax. They tricked us.
Yeah.
They tricked us. Frank Copeland, thank you for being a member. My dad was a recon Marine and a drill instructor. My mom is an ex-nun and was in the Navy in the 60s. White glove inspections were a thing for my bedroom as a kid. It only happened once a year. Wow.
Well, that's nice. Wow, only once a year, but honestly, that's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember white glove inspections as a 4 or 5-year-old from my own parents, and it was
awful.
Like the worst.
The worst. Miss Kim, I still only use white vinegar to clean everywhere because it kills germs and is non-toxic. My real question was, now Kirstie Alley's passed, when she started cleaning, she only cleaned her house with vodka. And she was like, well, it's alcohol and it dissipates. Did she did have to do an ethics handling on that, by the way, because it was out tech. But yeah, like you can't just clean your house with vodka. I mean, you can, but then it's going to smell like vodka. And then, everyone's
like, wrong though. Like I use vodka for body spray.
Oh, okay.
And you can even put it in your armpits and it'll help not make a smell. But the thing is, the smell of the vodka dissipates. I even saw a short where someone was saying that in the costumes for the ballerinas where they're sweating tons and these are costumes that can't be washed regularly. She's like, we spray them down with vodka and the smell goes away.
And you're killing all the germs and stuff.
Vodka maybe squirrely Kirstie Alley was
maybe she's onto something. Yeah. Miss Kim Bryant, how much Brasso did you go through? Guys, Brasso, for the uneducated, is a paste that you have to wax on, wax off on anything that is made with brass, which for some reason, like Celebrity Center, every demo kit was brass. And so every day we were just brassoing the fingerprints off because everybody's touching it. And it was just, it was Brasso.
Yeah, the door handles all through.
Door
handles, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Brasso.
And no gloves. No gloves for us.
Gloves? What? Shh. Come on.
Or masks.
No masks. Come on. We're tough. We're confronting the germs. Confront those germs. Martha, Scientology Jeopardy, roll call many times a day, cleaning sessions, bunks, crap, food, cigarettes. What does prison and Scientology have in common? Yes, Scientology Jeopardy.
I think I could maybe even say that some people in prisons in the US at least may have, in other countries may have it better sometimes, because at least they're told they have to go outside and be outside.
They have mandatory
nature.
yard time. Yeah, we didn't have that. No. Comment, when you first subscribe to a channel, it automatically puts notifications on personal. So you have to manually change it to all. I went through all my subscriptions and changed them all. So there you go, guys. Hot tip from Miss Kim. Mama D, thank you for this super chat for the Gay Raj. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. A to J, the newspaper thing for Windows is the oldest thing. This guy acts like he invented it. Yeah, guys,
that's what he did.
Everything. Yeah. Yeah.
He codified it. Remember, that's like the thing. It was things that existed.
Codified it. That's another Scientology thing. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that Julian would always say too. Is like he's like, yeah, sometimes things he didn't come up with, but he codified it.
Yeah.
And that one is really hard to get over, I think, because as an individual, you're going like, oh yeah, obviously this thing's, but he put it somewhere where we could read it.
Yeah. Yeah. So he made it accessible to all.
Yeah.
Makmirdo Shakal, worker safety. What's that again? Scientology in a nutshell. Absolutely.
I mean, how about all the people who did the renovations on Pac Base?
Oh yeah, like when I was on the RPF. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Demos with I mean, I herniated 2 discs in my back by using a sledgehammer that was the wrong size for me and swinging with my left hand. Fun times.
Good job. And then you went to ethics and PTS handling.
And I was like paralyzed. They couldn't do anything with me. I couldn't hardly walk. It was insane. Miss Kim worked at the Army base in crime records, social security numbers and stuff. The recycling center had a huge industrial shutter we hauled our stuff to. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense if it has like PPI in it, personal, public information, then yes, absolutely shred that, because that's important. SP WOG, are Scientologists marrying to get American citizenship? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one thing that they do.
Yeah. Because they human traffic people, guys, via the R1 visa from multiple countries into America. And then that R1 visa is usually only good like 1 to 3 years, depending on like which country and stuff like that. And then you're supposed to go back to your country to renew the R1 visa. You're supposed to leave the country, go back to your home country for like a 6-month period or 3-month period, depending again on the country, and then come back. So to avoid all that nonsense, either they would just not tell people when their R1 visas expired and just be like, oh, we totally forgot. I don't know what is your because you don't have access to any of your paperwork, your passport, your visa, nothing. You don't get to touch any of that. Security holds all that. Or when they know it's going to be a flap legally, they just, find somebody for this person to marry so that they can apply for citizenship and a green card. So yes, absolutely. Martha Simons, newsflash, Scientology is the implant station. Well,
yeah, I liked that. That was good.
That's probably true. Pamela SP Butterfly, thank you for being a member. I have friends who created a new last name by taking parts of their last names and combining them. Yeah, my wife and I thought about doing that, but I ultimately just took her last name because I liked it. It was a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I even know people who are active Scientologists who have done that. They had like some weird last name and they hated it. So when they got married, they combined part of their 2 last names or some old family name and both changed their names legally. It's like, it's not like you're a con artist who has multiple bank accounts in different names and you're scamming people, it's much different.
Well, Scientologists do all kinds of weird stuff. Like Lauren Willardson all of a sudden decided that her name was not Lauren anymore, guys. It was Loren. I'll never forget the day she came into course and she was like, we're like doing roll call. And I was like, Lauren. She's like, Loren. I was like, okay, Lauren. No, it's Loren. You need to call me Loren now. And I was like, no.
You have to change how you spell it at least.
I reject that. Your name is Lauren. Like, I know your parents. Like,
yeah. But you have to at least spell it differently. You can't be like, oh, no. It's pronounced. It's like asterisk 5 to
like, what are you,
FK. It's pronounced sweetness.
Yeah. You're like, what? Yeah. No. You get all kinds of stuff. People break out of Alcatraz. The hardest prison to break out of is our mental ones. Thank you, VTV. You've had a lot of wise words in the chat today. I wanted to highlight some more of them. I appreciate you for being a member and sharing your thoughts here. Martha Simons, homo novus is homobogus. Yes. This is true. These are facts. These are facts. Corn Freak, thanks for being a member. Thanks for being here. Dumbest thing for periods, scented tampons. Yes.
Don't put anything scented in your puss.
Please don't.
It's not for that.
The Massengill ads that we went through as children, like, Mom, do you ever get that not so fresh feeling? Like, no one ever had that conversation with their mother ever. And don't douche. Don't do those things. Your uterus is a natural self-cleaning oven. If it is not doing that, please see an OBGYN. Okay.
Yeah, if there's an odd smell that's very strong, that's a disease that you can go get treated. It's not permanent.
Go, boop.
Yeah, it's okay.
Please see an OBGYN. If you have any questions about the female genitalia department and you have that, please see an OBGYN. Ask all the questions. They are there to do that. That is like literally their job. It's not just to give you an examination. It's also to be like, make sure everything's running correctly in that.
And that they know, and you know what you're doing.
Yes, because somebody else said in the chat that we need to normalize it and talking about menopause and talking about all these things. And I absolutely agree, because the female body should never be mysterious, in that like yours can be a personal mystery to everyone. You don't have to walk around naked. That's not what I'm advocating for nudity. But everyone should understand how it works. And everybody should understand these are the mechanics, not just making a baby, which is a miracle. It's amazing. It's like a whole thing. You're never going to, people always ask me, should I do that? I'm like, do you want kids? They're like, not really. I'm like, don't, because you're never going to have your own life. And also you're never going to pee right again. Like that fucking kid dances on your bladder for 9 months and your bladder's fucking broken. Yeah. Or no, you're never going to poop right again. It's like you're sacrificing your own personal digestive system for the rest of your life to create this other human. So if you are interested in just like pooping and peeing, and not peeing every time you sneeze or laugh too hard, don't do it.
And it's okay. That's one of the things that I had to also get over when we left Scientology, was like, it was okay for people to not have babies.
Right.
Like I met people and they're like, oh, I hate kids. And I'd be like, not talking to that person anymore. You're yucky. Yeah.
No, and I have so many friends that have made the childless decision and they still get like tons of pressure from their family. And I'm like, you're good for you. Because you can't, kids are not returnable. You can't take them to Nordstrom's and just be like, well, this one didn't work out for me.
Babies are cute.
They're
not. And that's part of the trick too, is you see a cute little baby and you're like, I'm gonna smell your head.
I love you.
So good. Oh, you farted? That was so cute.
And guys, that's hormones. All that smell and everything else, that ignites a specific part of the mom's brain to say, protect, 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 love, to nourish. It ignites our primal brain to do those things. And even if you haven't had kids, ladies out there with the uterus and the ovaries, when you're around babies and your body is really getting fertile, it will start telling you that, like that baby fever thing. Even if you don't want a baby, at some point your uterus wants a baby. And so you have to have a very stern conversation with your uterus. Like, we're not making fetch happen. Like this is not, that is not going to happen, because that baby fever, that idea of like the constant thinking about it and this biological clock, 1,000,000% real. 1,000,000% real. And as somebody who in 2016, I did end up having a hysterectomy because of like, I had basically my uterus was the size of a 4-month pregnant woman all the time because it was filled with fibroids. It was just not a good scenario for me. And it made my periods just go on forever. I was never not having my period essentially for like a number of years. And, so I had the hysterectomy. Highly recommend if you're like, I still have my ovaries. So I still have like the hormones and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I haven't had a period since 2016. So like, that's amazing for me. Love that journey for me. But, like these are all personal choices. These should remain the choice of the person who is occupying those body parts. That's my personal opinion. I know that's controversial right now, but the ability to be able to talk about it and normalize, certain words, vulva, vagina, You know, those are two different things, by the way, guys. And uterus and ovaries. It's important because everyone talks about penises all the time. They call each other dicks. They, it's totally okay to throw male genitalia around, but female genitalia off limits.
Gross. It's gross.
Disgusting. Let's not talk about it.
It's almost in the same vein of like, oh no, my wife doesn't fart or poop, and you're like, right? And they're like, I mean, I know, but like, no, they don't.
We're not going to talk about it.
It's not normalized when they're kids. And so then when they get to be an adult, they're like, oh, I've been told it's all yucky. And with us, we try and normalize everything. I mean, the kids know how the uterus, the vulva, the vagina, everything. And I think that it goes into like, they understand when I get my period and that I'm having cramps and that it doesn't feel good, and like they get that concept at such a young age. So
you have to, it's just about, I mean, in today's vernacular, you call that sex positive.
Yes.
And trying to not have it be a secret. I have the same approach with alcohol with my kids. I don't drink like pretty much ever. But I have a great whiskey collection because I love whiskey. So every once in a while I have like this much of my whiskey, but I have taken the time to take out all the various different types of alcohol and had my kids smell it and taste it a tiny bit because I want them to understand, not like they don't have a drink. Okay, guys.
Right. No, it's just enough to put it on their tongue.
Because I want them to understand, like, if you go to a party, especially my elder teens, and you have a Coke, and all of a sudden your Coke starts tasting weird, you need to put that shit down.
Right.
Put it down. Don't touch it again because somebody has put something in there. And, so you can tell, you can smell. Like if you pick up your Coke and you're like, no.
Right.
Because people will do that. And then also I made like a jungle juice, basically, that you cannot taste the alcohol in. And I had them try it. And they're like, that's really good. I said, this is the most dangerous drink of your entire life because that's what teens do. Make a punch. And then they're handing out, don't ever drink a punch somewhere because you don't know what's in that. You don't know how much alcohol is in that. You don't know
what else is put in there.
What else is in it. Exactly. And the safest thing, like when I would go to parties as a kid, because I was terrified of drugs, right? Growing up Scientologist, I would bring my own 6-pack of Coke that I would put in the fridge. And if I ever set my Coke down for a second, that Coke was dead to me. I would walk around with like my thumb, over the thing because I didn't even trust my regular friends in high school because they were all like, I'm going to drop some acid in your Coke and I want to see you freak out. And I was like,
right. That's like, I mean, like, they're like, I want to experience what you're like when I do, like, you
would be rad drunk,
And again, those brains, the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. Their ability to distinguish between what's right and wrong is still not completely developed.
No. And we didn't understand, again, the brain. I was like, that doesn't mean anything. Developing the frontal cortex, that's stupid. Yeah. I'm an adult. I'm in charge. Right. I know things. I mean, I was clear at 14. So I was like, guys, I am so far advanced of you. You don't even understand. We're not on the same playing field
exactly.
here. Like, so yeah, I mean, I try to like have my kids and they think I'm obnoxious. I'm talking to stuff all the time. We talk about everything, but I think ultimately like we have a junior now, we have one who graduated. I have a freshman. I'm most worried about the freshman because they're too much like me. Very curious, very, personal, but they are like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not, and they're also open with us. We also have a rule. If you are somewhere and like, let's say you did get into some stuff, you can call us any time of day or night, no questions asked, no judgment. And we will come get you and whoever else wants to leave and we'll handle it. It's totally fine. And then we'll talk about it.
We've already had that conversation with Rex and he's just 11. Like he's not going to parties. He barely even wants to leave our house. Yeah. Like he's like very much a parent kid,
Yeah.
But I feel like it's part of the responsibility that wasn't told to us.
No.
We weren't given those, hey, if you're at a party and all of a sudden you start to feel really weird, call me. I'll come get you. I had the opposite where it was like, don't call after this time. I'm not going to pick you up.
Yeah.
I'm done for the day. Yeah, you're staying there. You don't like it, go to another room or find a parent or
Yeah. You just do it. Yeah. There was none of that. Thank you, Canood, for being a member. You're both amazing women with unique experiences. I've worked as a therapist for 10 years with the trauma population. You both show a lot of resilience. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
So thank you
It
for being
always
a
is helpful.
therapist, you know, and listening to people because that's
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
Main house. That's why your therapist should be trauma specialist, not just a weekend course of trauma informed. They can re-traumatize you. Absolutely.
Yes.
It's very important. If anyone's out here lurking or is like, you know, thinking about going to therapy, this is superior advice. If you've experienced any sort of significant trauma in your life, please, the therapist will put a whole bio up there. You know, and make sure you find a trauma specialist because they are amazing.
You can Google it. You can actually, I think it's Psychology Today.
Yes.
You can go on their website. You can search your city, your town. You can say the specifics. I mean, once I got my therapist, who is a trauma therapist specifically,
right,
things have just snowballed so fast. It makes such a difference.
It really does. It really does. And also, I want to say this. You can break up with your therapist if it's not a healthy relationship, if it's if you're not feeling heard, if you're feeling shut down or talked down to. It's okay to be like, you know what? You don't even have to tell them. Just cancel your appointments with them and find somebody else. It's totally okay. You're under
I'm not going to call you again and be like, where are you?
No.
Oh, some you blew. All, you know, like, it's so easy to have that, like, you know, if you don't like your auditor, what happens in Scientology? You're taken back in session with your auditor and trying to find out what have you hidden from your auditor.
What have you done to them?
Yeah. What have you done? What have you not done? What have you withheld? And it's like, again, it's the opposite. And that's where I always go, like, therapy is not like Scientology. It's not like auditing. It's so different. You don't like the person. That's okay. Some people just don't jive well with people. It's like, it's okay.
And there is a reason why therapy is hard stop after that hour, because like, as we're discovering right now, this is painful.
Yes.
And we have the ability to never stop talking because we're drilled to do that. To just keep going no matter what.
Give all the details, give all the specifics. And
it's like, you have to take time. You have to be like, we're going to talk about just this today. Just this. We're going to just peek in the curtains. Boop. We're going to just.
You can even go to your therapist and be like, I'm going to just, you know, I'm not feeling good today. And then they'll go, okay, well, let's do a small check-in and then I'll let you go. I've had 15-minute therapy sessions because I go, I can't. I'm experiencing these things. I need to go rest. I need to take care of myself. And they go, good, you do that. If you need me before next week, call me, message me. I'll be there. We'll work something out. If I need to, we can get you in for another session.
Exactly. It's so different to actually feel cared for and that what you're saying is important, and you don't have, you know, and you can take time to build trust with the therapist too. You don't actually, you know, you can just do the getting to know you stuff for as long as you need. You know, it's not about, you know, just barfing it all out. Because they don't get paid by the trauma, guys. They don't get like a bonus.
And they're not getting.
This lady is horrifically fucked up. I am getting a bonus from Big Pharma. That's not how that works. Bad Grammy. I see so many. Thanks for being a member. I see so many ex-Scientos feel they are not worthy of love and happiness. I pray we can all help you find that you are loved. Thank you for that. Thank you. That is something that we all do struggle with 100%. REM Arts. God, guys, I'm burping up a storm here. Thanks for being a member. Beetlejuice rolls up his arms, but otherwise that would be magical to see. Yes. And I do love Beetlejuice. And apparently they're making a sequel, guys. Michael Keaton is back. That's amazing. Martha, unfortunately, this is the unbearable result of a life of shoving down the pain and not learning how to cope with real emotions and physical pain. Yeah,
exactly. And we're learning for ourselves and then also teaching our children. Yeah. And that's where we have to be vulnerable and go, I'm not having a good time and I'm struggling. I love you. I just need a little bit of time. You matter to me. And then coming back to the kid again and being like, I'm here now. I'm sorry.
What can we do to get the elderly out of the Sea Org? I see a very old woman barely getting up very steep stairs in LA across from Big Blue where the vans go through the garage door under an apartment building. This is an issue that weighs on my mind heavily, guys. If you have not taken the time to go see Mike Brown's channel at Mike Brown 101 and the interviews that he's done with his mom, Rosemary, this is, for me, it's a dual issue. The kids have to stop being indoctrinating because they cannot consent. And what's happening with the elderly is a similar fashion. Whether or not this person got in the 70s, 50 years ago, and they've, committed their life to it, they are now in their 70s, 80s, 90s, some of them. And the time for them to be doing, 10 plus hours of labor a day is well past. Many of them are super malnourished, nourished. I was like, what? I can't speak. I broke. Malnourished for decades because of living in the Sea Org and things like that. They have not had the correct vitamins, all this stuff. And so now they have terrible osteoporosis, terrible arthritis, and other really crippling conditions that are not cared for in a proper way at all, other than for them to do conditions and find out why they have crimes against humanity. Okay. And then they have horrific things happen to them, like what happened to Rosemary, where they have their identity stolen and credit racked up in their name to bankrupt them eventually, because who cares? They're going to die and they're throwaway people. So there are varying laws in different states in regards to elder abuse. So what I would say is we need a lawyer to dive into these cases, because oftentimes these people don't have family because they didn't procreate. They didn't have kids. They dedicated their lives to the Sea Org, and the rest of their family is now passed because maybe they were an only child, or they disconnected from their family so long ago that they don't even know that they're still alive, to be honest. Okay. So I have to do more research, to be honest, on what we can and can't do, because again, in order to get custody and bypass the church and things like that, that is a huge legal battle.
It is. You have to be able to prove an incompetence at that point, like a cognitive decline. And if they go, no, I'm happy, then the only thing the state or city or judge will say is they're happy, and we can't force them to do it. And so I think that showing up, I think communicating, not the Xenu, no one cares about Xenu. No one even, it's not a thing. What is the thing is going, hey, it's not normal. You're working this many hours. You're being abused. Let's put those little seeds of doubt in them. Yeah. Those little seeds sprout flowers. And if it can be where one person just goes, oh, I can reach out, I can leave, then it helps start the momentum of that.
And remind them that they're humans. Remind them of their own family, of their childhoods, of going to visit their own grandparents. And just like they are human beings, even though they're in a cult and they're, they say outrageous things and they're doing all this stuff, they are still underneath all of that, those layers of cultiness. They are humans who are still, trying to human in the only way that they know. And so trying to bring them to present time, to use the Scientology phrase, you have to remind them that it's 2024 and they're now in their 70s. And remember when you saw your grandparents when you were a kid? Were they still working? Would they go work every day, all day because they were made to? Or were you welcomed into their house and they cooked you a meal? Like, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you someone's pop or nana right now? Like, what happened?
And they'll probably say that's, I'm doing the Lord's work type thing.
Yeah.
But it still creates that seed of doubt. And the more seeds we can sprinkle, especially at the PAC base, especially at these big, concentration of these Sea Org members, these staff
Florida
members.
PAC. Yeah. Because I think we end up having more intimate conversations almost because we have more opportunity to do that, like in Portland in these smaller organizations. Because like you pointed out earlier, they are so disconnected from that supreme pressure. When you're in a Sea Org base, you're just under the thumb. It's like I worked at Starbucks. So the farther away you get from corporate, the kind of more Wild West it is, because you just kind of go like, well, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to follow that recipe. Like, whatevs. What are they going to do? Come all the way from Seattle to fire me? Okay, bring it. And it's.
But if you're in Seattle, you're like, I could have an inspection any moment by the CEO, and I got to stay. And that's that kind of diligence. That's what That's part of the grooming, is they're trying to keep people diligent and focused, and
that's why they've
putting
sent
the blinders on.
members from PAC and Flag to all of these orgs as part of the admin, as there to be these little beacons of the Sea Org, so that the people there know, like, hot dog,
right?
This guy's going
have to
do
do
in the scabbage.
Exactly. Yeah, we have to keep doing what we're supposed to do. We can't have all these other things happening.
Yeah. In fact, Grammy, you're totally right. Like what happened to Rosemary, the cards being maxed out, it is identity fraud, and reminding them of that, like, hey, you have the right as an American citizen to not have credit cards taken out in your name. That's identity theft. It's illegal. Letting people know that something's illegal is kind of important, because a lot of people in the Sea Org, they don't know these new laws. They've been there for 40 years, guys. They don't even know what that means. And they'll start thinking about it. They'll ask questions. They'll get in trouble, but they'll realize, oh, that's real.
Right.
And that it has to be a hammer of Thor moment, guys, to get people out of Scientology, even the old people. They have to be made to make a supreme choice between Scientology and something they cannot live without. And when that hammer of Thor crossroads occurs, that is when the person goes, fuck, I can't stay here anymore.
Right.
This is the end. And it's a sad thing, and they're going to mourn it, and they're going to go through a lot of histrionics, but it has that has to happen. Yeah. That has to happen. So, all right. We've been going for almost 3 hours. You guys are amazing for still being here. I appreciate you so much. Thank you to the mods who are here. Thank you guys for being a member. Please like and subscribe. We will be back again to talk about all of our feelings and life and things another time. And I'll catch you guys on the flippity dippity.
Bye, guys.